Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable. See playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 801, Smash. Even a powerful Soul Sea Realm warrior would have to reconnect his broken arm if it was dislocated. Otherwise, he would become a cripple. No human body had such miraculous regenerative abilities. This was why the Nine Furnace Martial House was becoming increasingly interested in the little monster. The martial artists of the Nine Furnace Martial House secretly conducted research on the little monster's body within the Nine Furnace Martial House. One day they discovered the little monster's secret abilities, which could help other martial artists with their cultivation. A martial artist was born with some amount of talent. Some medicinal herbs could modify this talent, but these weren't found in the Divine Kingdom continent. In order to cultivate faster and reach a higher level, the four Divine Kingdoms had established numerous martial houses and constructed countless secret training grounds. They had organized all sorts of matches for martial artists at different levels during which they could constantly temper themselves, fight vicious beasts, and train for life-threatening situations. All this was done to unleash their talents and make the most of them. When the martial artists of the Nine Furnace Martial House discovered the little monster's talent, they were all excited. A warrior at nature level was stuck at a bottleneck for many years. He probably would never have a chance to enter the illuminating soul realm. However, after fighting with the little monster, he was enlightened and soon advanced to the illuminating soul realm. This was the effect of the little monster's talent. When he had first entered the Nine Furnace Martial House, he was only at the marrow refining level. He wasn't even a nature creature back then. The Nine Furnace Martial House soon discovered that the little monster could help others break through a bottleneck during a spar. However, this was only possible if the gap in cultivation wasn't too large. If an internal elixir realm martial artist fought with the little monster, the effects would be minimal, but a nature creature would benefit a lot from fighting with him. The Nine Furnace Martial House had specially built a stone tower where they had chained the little monster, and every day, they would send in a different nature level martial artist to fight him. Many martial artists at nature level died at the hands of the savage monster. But, those who survived could rapidly advance to the next level. The little monster was not a fool. Even though he was a fierce beast, he was smart enough to learn the purpose of this group of warriors. So he refused to fight. No matter how much the Nine Furnace Martial House abused him, or even cut off his hands and feet, the little monster still refused to fight. After several months of stalemate, the Nine Furnace Martial House finally compromised. It would be a waste to use the little monster simply to cultivate warriors at nature level. If they cultivated the little monster instead, one day he would be able to reach the illuminating soul realm, the virtual tribulation realm, or even the life and death realm. Then he would be of even greater use to the Nine Furnace Martial House. Then the little monster fit into the human society. As he grew stronger and stronger, his talent became more and more valuable. After entering the internal elixir realm, he was able to help the virtual tribulation realm martial artists to break through their bottlenecks, and after entering the virtual tribulation realm, he could help many life and death realm martial artists to break through their bottlenecks too. Many powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm were hoping that the little monster could also help them to break through. That was why they were eagerly hoping that he could enter the late stage of the virtual tribulation realm soon. If he could enter the life and death realm, he would be able to help out the Soul Sea realm warriors. This was a huge temptation and no one at the Soul Sea realm could resist it. War Emperor York, War King Wind and Turner were stuck at the Soul Sea realm for countless years. Unfortunately, the resources in the lower world were too scarce. They were not sufficient for the Soul Sea realm experts to cultivate in order to reach the next level. In this situation, where the Soul Sea realm experts couldn't ascend, the little monster was their only hope. This was how he earned a high status. Even the princes didn't dare to provoke him. However, the little monster's cultivation suddenly stopped ever since he attained the late stage of the virtual tribulation realm. Many Soul Sea realm warriors were puzzled. The little monster's talent was very powerful. Why was he stuck at the late stage of the virtual tribulation realm? 10 years had passed and yet the little monster was still at the late stage of the virtual tribulation realm, unable to go further into the life and death realm. Some of the Soul Sea Realm warriors couldn't wait any longer and went to fight the little monster. However, the gap between the Soul Sea Realm and the Virtual Tribulation Realm was too big, and it didn't work out as anticipated. There was nothing that could be done at the moment. They could only wait for the little monster to advance slowly. Fortunately, the powerful Soul Sea Realm warriors had a long lifespan, so they could afford to wait. He couldn't break through to the Virtual Tribulation Realm in 10 years, so they would wait 20 to 30 years. It would have been easier to use the little monster to kill Zen. However, after seeing the battle between Zen and Fiona, Marine hesitated. The talent that Zen displayed was also extremely terrifying. Just like the little monster, he also possessed extraordinary theurgy. The battle within the enchanted barrier began to get more exciting. One of the little monster's hands was tightly wrapped around Zen. He was forcing Zen to engage in a hand-to-hand fight. This was the little monster's best strategy. Every part of his body could be used as a lethal weapon. None of the martial artists who fought the little monster had any chance of escaping. Without exception, all of them had died. But this time, the little monster was facing Zen. He could turn every part of his body into a weapon, but Zen himself was a weapon. Moreover, after Zen had refined, his body had become a sacred weapon. The little monster's neck suddenly stretched out, and his head swung high up like a hammer and came smashing heavily towards Zen. Zen's expression was calm. His left hand was filled with power, and he threw a punch towards the little monster's head, as if he was punching a sandbag. The power of his punch knocked the little monster's head back more than 200 feet. After crashing into the side wall of the enchanted barrier, the head bounced back and came smashing back towards Zen with a horrifying force. They fought like two fierce beasts. Every time they attacked, the enchanted barrier set up by the powerful warrior at the Soul Sea Realm shook violently. Virtual Tribulation Realm warriors were powerful. Every punch was forceful enough to crack stone, and every single blow by these two creatures had the same effect. However, because they were trapped in the enchanted barrier, their punches did not look so scary. If the enchanted barrier was removed and they were to fight freely, then the West Dragon River would probably be riddled with holes. I'm stunned by this battle. From the looks of it, there seems to be no way to determine the outcome, said one warrior, shaking his head. Encountering an opponent like the little monster can only be regarded as Thad's misfortune. It is difficult to defeat the little monster. But Thad isn't weak either. What the heck is his body made of? He should have been hurt many times by the little monster by now, right? But he looks just fine. At this point, Zen became impatient. This little monster was even more difficult to defeat than he had thought. The first thing he needed to do was pull him off his body. So Zen suddenly turned around and twisted the little monster's other hand, and then he suddenly leapt into the air and stomped heavily on the little monster's chest. The little monster realized what Zen was up to. You want to get rid of me? In your dreams, he jeered. But in that moment, the forceful energy in Zen's body suddenly erupted, and as he stretched his legs, the power of the dragon scales within his body also surged out. Zen was like a meteor, crashing into the edge of the enchanted barrier, but the little monster's hands were still firmly entwined around his body. Zen had already anticipated this, so when he hit the edge of the barrier, he pulled with all his might. The little monster's soft body crashed into the enchanted barrier. In my dreams, I don't believe that your body has no limits. Zen swung his hands once again and pushed the little monster heavily. The little monster's body instantly got stuck to the barrier. Bang, 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 bang. A series of loud sounds echoed in the air as Zen swung the little monster's body, smashing it into both ends of the barrier. Every collision caused the barrier to tremble. One could imagine how much the little monster's body was suffering. Seeing the little monster being treated like this by Zen, one of the Soul Sea Realm experts got worried and asked the War Emperor York, should we stop Zen? Although the little monster's body is almost immortal, if this goes on, he might die. Many powerful Soul Sea Realm warriors had been anxiously waiting for the little monster to enter the life and death realm. Now they were afraid that the little monster would be killed by Zen. Chapter 802, Son of the Plain. Choosing to engage in close combat with Zen was a big mistake. Sure, the little monster's body was indeed very special. He was virtually unmatched in terms of power and strength in the 4 divine kingdoms. Physical combat could be considered his forte, and any fight that required brute strength would always work out in his favor. Unfortunately, he met Zen. Despite being unmatched in the 4 divine kingdoms, the little monster could never have hoped to compare to Zen's strength. Not even a mighty Soul Sea Realm warrior would be able to withstand a punch from the young man. To add to that, Zen's body had also just become a sacred weapon. An ordinary sacred weapon such as a saber or a sword could not compare to an entire human body in terms of width and physical attributes. Zen's body, therefore, was naturally stronger than any sacred saber or sword. There was no way the little monster would be able to injure Zen in melee combat. There was no sugarcoating it. The little monster's choice led him to his own doom. Meanwhile, War Emperor York stewed in anger as he watched the fight. Zen's strike would have no doubt injured the little monster badly, but the War Emperor remained silent and did nothing to stop the battle. He knew how tough the little monster was. He wouldn't die so easily. Both War Emperor York and Marine had placed their hopes upon the little monster. They needed him to kill Zen. Any intervention from his part would mean admitting defeat for the little monster, and that was far from what he wanted. It was just that the little monster had been too arrogant. The decision to fight Zen using only brute strength, without any use of life vitality, was terribly stupid. The little monster brought this upon himself and it made War Emperor York terribly angry. According to Marine, Zen was a very capable fighter. He had managed to kill a 4th-level life and death realm warrior, and even both Master Abraham and Master Wallace. However, War Emperor York remained skeptical. Zen couldn't have possibly killed Master Wallace and Master Abraham, though he suspected that their deaths might still be related to the young man. Bang, bang, bang. Zen's onslaught of attacks continued, and each strike that landed on the little monster made the expression on War Emperor York's face grow darker. The other warriors watching, however, were the opposite. They, in fact, felt happy at the scene in front of them. The little monster had a less than amicable reputation among them. He was a notorious character who did all sorts of evil things. Had he been born as a divine kingdom crown prince, he would have long since been dethroned. He was someone who generated a lot of hate from the people around him, but nobody could really afford to offend him due to his strength. The only way to deal with the little monster was to outright avoid him. The 9 Furnace Martial House warriors were especially happy seeing the little monster be brutally abused by Zen. It was like the New Year's celebration for them, but 5 times better. They felt that Zen was helping them vent out their frustrations upon the little monster through his constant tirade of attacks. It was a strangely cathartic experience for all of them. Fiona, who had since returned to the top of the stairs, also liked what she saw. The little monster's current predicament was proof that evil did in fact bounce back. Fiona also had her share of bad memories with him. In the past, her father, War King Wind, had brought her to the York Divine Kingdom to spar with the little monster. She wasn't really someone who left her kingdom's training grounds, so the battle with the little monster was initiated in the hopes of helping her achieve a faster breakthrough. The little monster had just entered the internal elixir realm, and he had been full of obscenities during the match. His attacks almost injured Fiona, which made War King Wind extremely angry to the point that he was ready to end the little monster's life. It was only because of War Emperor York that her father spared him. The experience did help Fiona break through the late stage of the internal elixir realm, but it left her traumatized. The little monster's horrible image was something she brought back with her to the Wind Divine Kingdom to endure for the better part of a year. It went without saying that a sweet, kind princess such as Fiona utterly feared and hated the little monster. She felt the exact opposite with Zen. She greatly admired the young man. Warriors usually worshipped people stronger than them after all. Fiona was no exception. She also worshipped many people, but all of them were seniors. Besides the little monster, nobody had caught her attention within their generation. Even the crown prince's strength was far more inferior to hers. Zen, or Thad as she had come to know him, was different and unexpectedly impressed her with his abilities. She was immediately intrigued by him after his match with Logan. That was the reason why she requested her father to arrange a match between the two of them. Fiona rarely had any interest with sparring, but Zen piqued her interest. War King Wind also doted heavily on his daughter, so of course he arranged the match for her. Her loss left her feeling quite complicated. Now that she had fought with him, there was that itching feeling within her that wanted to know more about this mysterious young man. A lot of questions ran in her mind. Who was his master? How was he able to become so strong? Was he really from the Sky Northern region? How could such a talent like him come from such a small place? These questions ran through her head all the time ever since. She needed to know more about him. But of course, she could not forget her place. Fiona was a dignified princess of a divine kingdom, and she couldn't just bombard Zen with her questions all at once. She had to be subtle and thus, resigned herself to watching him from a distance. Zen had swung the little monster hard towards the enchanted barrier. Just as he did, a sharp pain shot through his hands that made him lose his grip on his opponent. The little monster's 2 long arms quickly shrank back and returned to their original state. Now that Zen had let go of him, he finally began to use his life vitality and floated onto the air. Zen scoffed and followed his opponent up in the air. I thought you wouldn't use your life vitality. I underestimated you, the little monster admitted frankly. There was a slight hint of shame in the little monster's tone. Although he possessed an almost immortal body, Zen's earlier abuse had left him a bit dispirited, especially after his blatant display of arrogance at the start of the match. Still, that did not mean that he was an easy opponent. Zen himself was actually quite amazed at his opponent's resistance to attacks. The little monster's body was the strongest Zen had ever seen. It was only second to his own. The Cyan Dragon had once said that Zen's treasure body was probably unique in this universe, but it was only one of the many wonders that existed in their world. There were so many more unique things in the universe, and the little monster was perhaps another one of them. The little monster had grown up in an unforgiving forest filled with all sorts of vicious beasts. His savage nature, a product of the environment he had grown up in, always got the best of him. He was arrogant, aggressive, and he was never that serious when facing his opponents. He was a wild thing, but after being groomed by the Nine Furnace Martial House, the little monster began to realize his goal, and that was to kill off all the Soul Sea Realm experts in the Divine Kingdom continent. Why? So that he could turn it into his own world. It sounded far-fetched, but the little monster believed wholeheartedly in his dream. Why would War Emperor York train him? So that he could get stronger and then use his talent to help the warriors break through. However, his experience with the Nine Furnace Martial House had effectively sown the seeds of hatred for all martial artists in his heart. There was only room for revenge in the little monster's mind. Before he was strong enough, however, he knew he had to patiently endure. The reason why he had been unable to break through the virtual tribulation realm was that he was suppressing his own cultivation. He knew that once he broke through and entered the life and death realm, he would be able to affect these Soul Sea Realm masters and help them attain a higher level. This was far from what he wanted. There was no way he was helping his enemies get stronger, so he chose to suppress himself in the hopes that he could break through the virtual tribulation realm and instantly reach the life and death realm. This was the only way he'd stand a chance against the Soul Sea Realm powerhouses. For the little monster, the requirement he set for himself was to be able to fight someone who was an entire realm higher than him. He was currently at the late stage of the virtual tribulation realm, but he could face off against a 5th or even 6th level life and death realm warrior. Once he broke through, he should be able to attain the 3rd or even 4th level of the life and death realm, which would be enough to face off against Soul Sea Realm masters. He wouldn't be able to defeat War Emperor York, but it would be enough for him to escape the Divine Kingdom continent. It was only once he got strong enough that he would come back for revenge. However, his plans had come crashing down upon meeting this other monster. Athad's cultivation level was lower than his, but he was by no means any weaker than him. He had greatly underestimated his opponent before, but now, the little monster knew that he had to take this fight seriously. He finally activated his life vitality and let it flow throughout his body, concentrating it on his hands. A speck of golden light sparked in his palm. Zen couldn't help but frown at this speck of life vitality, as it gave off a very strange feeling that he couldn't describe. It was as if the golden life vitality contained some kind of strange, complex rule. No wonder you can't kill him, Lavender said. She was also unable to determine the little monster's origins before, but the sight of the golden life vitality in his palm confirmed something for her. This guy isn't a monster, but he isn't exactly human either. He is the son of the plane. Chapter 803, Natural Talents. The son of the plane. Zen was momentarily stunned upon hearing Lavender's words. What did she mean by that? The great world that you live in can be seen as a separate plane. It is its own entity. Just as the stars have their own wills, so does this great world, Lavender explained patiently. The will of a great world was not of a single mind. Rather, it was a mirror reflecting the wills of all living beings. Their lives and desires intertwined, creating an aggregation. The vast majority of the living beings were the humans, and so the son of the plane took their form, even if not entirely. There were some small details that differed from that of an ordinary human's physique, such as his forked tongue, wolf-like sharp teeth, and pitch-black pupils, accounting for the space meant for other living beings. Not every great world would have its son. It was born through destruction. Only when irreversible damage had been dealt, it would show its presence to repair the great world. If my guess is correct, this little monster should have been born in this great world with the mission to repair the path to the upper world, Lavender concluded. Her deductions were correct. The path to the upper world had been destroyed by the genuine dragons, so the Soul Sea Realm masters had no way of ascending. It was because of this that this monster, or the son of the plane, was born. Despite her understanding of the situation, Lavender knew there was something amiss. This monster must be this great world's incarnation. However, his character is quite strange, as she continued. There must have been a lot of deviations in the process of his growth. She shook her head as she looked at the creature. When a great world needed restoration, the son of the plane would appear by chance in the form of a living being. He would be born naturally, like any other creature, and go through the stages of his own lifetime. Only after he had reached adulthood would his mission be revealed to him. Then, he would draw from the plane's power to repair the great world. Just as Lavender had deduced, the little monster had indeed lived through a long and tortuous life. Having been born hideous, he had been abandoned after his birth in the Seven-Water Forest. No beast had touched him. They had instinctively recognized his true identity and raised him as one of their own kind. But the peace would not last for long. The warriors of the Nine-Furnace Martial House entered the Seven-Water Forest to cultivate, and in doing so, killed the vicious beasts. Seeing his kind fall down one by one at the hands of humans had awoken an unforgiving wrath in him, and his heart had completely turned against the creatures that had once abandoned him. Lavender only smiled wistfully and said, well, this is still a good chance for you. The son of the plane is the embodiment of the will of this plane, and he carries the will of the entire plane. If he uses his own life vitality, he will release the great world's natural talent, which can help you improve your cultivation base. Even the lucky light in the Dragon Soar Arena and the Tower of Sin would fall behind to its effect. The lucky light in the Dragon Soar Arena and the Tower of Sin was useful for all races, but the natural talent released by the incarnation of the plane was a fusion of all the natural laws. And since Zen was born in this plane, its potency would be even better. Alright, I understand it now, Zen said as his eyes flashed with excitement. Focus on prolonging the battle. The longer you fight him, the greater the benefit will be for you, Lavender suggested. The little monster watched from the side as Lavender quietly instructed Zen. Zen's anticipation did not escape him. Seeing this, he grinned and said, since you've forced me to use my life vitality, I'll make sure to pay you back in full with a good fight. As soon as he said these words, the monster's life vitality burst forth in a blinding ray of light from his hand. Obscure laws sprung from his life vitality, like an ancient, obsolete language that no one could decipher. His golden life vitality morphed into a long spear, its blades cutting through the air and shooting towards Zen with a sharp whistle. The spear had extraordinary power, and it would be wise of Zen not to face it directly. With a sudden twist of his body, he turned, effectively dodging the attack. The spear dashed forward, flying past the enchanted barrier created by a master at the Soul Sea realm. Zen's eyes widened as he saw the blade puncture the enchanted barrier. Previously, even the Phoenix's Nirvana flames were unable to even make so much as a scratch, but the golden spear was so powerful that it pierced directly through the barrier. Astonishment was written all over the face of the Soul Sea realm master who had created the enchanted barrier. Then, with a quick wave of his hand, the hole that had been made by the spear instantly vanished. Even the masters at the Soul Sea realm could not fully comprehend what was happening before them. All they understood was that it was one of the monster's many mysteries. The obscure laws that were contained in his life vitality seemed able to counter all kinds of powers. It was not so much that the long spear was powerful, it would not have been powerful enough to pierce through the enchanted barrier on its own. However, the laws contained in it directly dissolved the life vitality within the enchanted barrier. Of course, they did not know that the monster was actually the incarnation of the plane. Even the little monster himself didn't know it. His body contained all the natural talents of this great world, which included all the natural talents of human beings. In other words, the monster had an almost absolute power over this great world. The monster was only at the late stage of the virtual tribulation realm, but he would be able to defeat most life and death realm warriors without difficulty. Only the masters at the Soul Sea realm would still be able to suppress him. A Soul Sea realm master had his own unique domain which followed its own rules. If the rules were powerful enough, it could disrupt and weaken the connection between the great world's will and the monster. Nonetheless, it was only at present that the Soul Sea realm masters could control the little monster. Their timing had been fortunate. Once the monster grew stronger and reached the life and death realm, things would be very different. The little monster looked at the spear approvingly. It had declared his strength very clearly. As of the moment, the monster had not yet awakened to the will of the great world. He was no different from a savage fiend. His anger fueled him, kept alive by the memories of his blood-stained past. He killed off warriors mercilessly, reveling in the way their bodies distorted and their voices rang with agonized screams. It had been his sport, a one whose excitement was quickly wearing thin as his prey proved not to be much of a challenge. He had been restless and bored. Then Zen came in the picture like fresh game, his blood pumping with life and energy. He would be a worthy opponent. The monster licked his lips as he eyed Zen with crazed bloodlust. Great. Let's continue. He shouted, then burst into wild laughter. His golden life vitality poured out from his body like a tidal wave, creating more golden spears which headed straight to Zen's direction. Now, let's see you dance, shall we? He bellowed. Zen dodged the golden spears carefully, and noticed some golden specks of light coming out from them. Deciding to take a risk, he tried to absorb them and, to his surprise, they flowed inside him, in a way that was very much similar to the lucky light. Lavender is right, Zen muttered, his excitement increasing. His life vitality began to spin rapidly inside his body. The effects of the natural talents that leaked out from those golden spears were far more potent than the lucky light. Zen had not moved forward from the middle stage of the virtual tribulation realm for a long time. Back at the Tower of Sin, he could have cultivated himself to a top-level warlord, but he had chosen to return to the central region as thoughts of Yan plagued in his mind. After that, he had reached the middle stage of the virtual tribulation realm in Cloud Hall and had not made any improvement since. Right now, his heart was pumping wildly, and Zen knew it was not solely from the fight. He had a premonition that he was on the verge of a breakthrough, and with the help of all these natural talents, he knew he could not be far off from stepping into the late stage of the virtual tribulation realm. How does it feel? Not bad, right? The little monster grinned fiendishly as he stared at Zen. Do you feel like your mind is clearer? Even your cultivation base is improving quickly. Your sense must be reeling from it, the monster said, then cackled once again. Zen didn't say anything in response. He continued to quickly maneuver himself through the space to avoid the golden spears, and at the same time, absorb the energy that they released. The monster knew that the energy he had released increased one's cultivation base. However, since he did not yet know the great world's will, he was ignorant to the fact that these lights were actually the natural talents. War Emperor York's face darkened as he watched the battle. This was far from the result he had hoped for. His goal, along with Marines, was to kill Zen by the hands of this monster. But now, the little monster was forced to use his life vitality, and things were beginning to work to Zen's favor. This man is absorbing the monster's magical energy. Some Soul Sea Realm masters exclaimed. They were unaware that the golden lights were natural talents, and they had called them magical energy instead. The little monster's natural talents were not inexhaustible. Once he used too much of that power, his life vitality would become gray and lose the effect it had in increasing one's cultivation base. In order to maintain its use, the Nine-Furnace Martial House would secretly kill some geniuses every once in a while and feed their energy to the monster. Only then would his life vitality return to a golden color. In other words, the monster possessed the ability to devour talents from other warriors and then release them for his own use, allowing others to absorb them as well. In the beginning, the monster had not intended to use his life vitality, but he was obviously no match to Zen in physical strength. Now, after Zen discovered the little monster's secret, he kept moving around the little monster, absorbing the magical energy from his life vitality. This was something that the War Emperor York had never even conceived possible. Chapter 804, Admitting Defeat. The little monster didn't seem too worried about Zen absorbing his natural talent. For him, Zen was not any greedier than the mighty warriors of the Soul Sea realm on the stairs. He had promised Marine to fight the battle, so he was not going to let Zen leave this place alive. Hundreds of golden spears thrust out and instantly, the enchanted barrier was riddled with holes. The mighty Soul Sea realm warrior could only repair the enchanted barrier again and again. This little monster's attacks were indeed aggressive. It looked as if he had firmly entrapped Zen within the enchanted barrier. However, it was merely a way for the little monster to vent his anger as it didn't really cause Zen much trouble. After a while, when the little monster felt he had done enough, a strange smile appeared on his face. That's enough. Now it's time to send you to perdition. Suddenly he moved and came in front of Zen in a flash, closing the distance between them in almost an instant. He was now less than 2 feet from Zen. Zen narrowed his eyes and threw a punch towards the little monster. But the little monster raised his hand to block it. With such a simple gesture from the little monster, Zen's strength had vanished into thin air without a trace. This time, it was Zen's turn to be shocked. How was it possible? Zen had feared that he would get trapped by the little monster's flexible body. After all, he was a tricky creature to deal with. Therefore, he had activated the power of the 800 dragon scales when he threw the punch. Although it was not his maximum strength, he had used up about 70 to 80% of his strength. Even a powerful warrior at the Soul Sea realm couldn't block his attack, yet, this little monster had managed to do it. It was as if Zen's strike, weighing thousands of pounds, was thrown by a child. It did not move even one hair on the little monster. Suddenly there was a deafening explosion from a mountain near the West Dragon River. Boom! This mountain range, which was over 10,000 feet high, stood beside the West Dragon River. Together with a mountain on the other side of the river, these mountains formed a gorge called Hidden Dragon Gorge, which was also a relatively famous gorge within the Divine Kingdom continent. The huge mountain suddenly erupted with a mighty force. Following the explosive sound, the entire mountain range began to crack and collapse from the center. Huge rocks rolled down towards the West Dragon River, and massive waves crashed in the surging river. The large mountain suddenly collapsed. What's going on? There is not a single soul on the West Dragon River, then how did that mountain suddenly collapse? I don't know. I was engrossed in the fight between Thad and the little monster just now. This Thad has innate superhuman strength. His strength is incredible, but this little monster easily countered his attack. It's unbelievable. Is there a connection between these two things? The audiences started discussing among themselves. They were getting more and more confused about this battle. Zen's expression was grave as he quickly withdrew his fist. He gritted his teeth, and his right hand once again accumulated an astonishing power. This time, he activated all the power of his dragon scales, while the forceful energy within his body erupted at the same time. All of his power flowed into Zen's fist. If this punch were to land on a powerful master of the Soul Sea realm, it would kill him instantly. However, the little monster still didn't dodge. He once again stretched out his palm towards Zen. When Zen's fist landed on the little monster's palm, the little monster's body didn't move at all. At the same time, a deafening sound erupted from another mountain on the West Dragon River. Booma! The second mountain collapsed. The little monster grinned and said to Zen, interesting, right? The power of my attack has been transferred, noted Zen with a frown. The little monster chuckled and walked closer to Zen. He wasn't afraid of Zen in the least and his face was filled with arrogance. To be honest, it's quite boring to watch you guys, who think yourselves extraordinarily gifted, jump around every dia. With that, the little monster turned his back towards Zen. This time he faced the many warriors who had the divine level talent and said, you call yourselves divine level talents, but it would take you several thousand years to advance to the Soul Sea realm. How can you call yourselves talents? You're only a pile of trash. Ha 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 ha. He laughed hysterically. He continued mocking them. Just now, this guy called Thad, no, actually Zen, showed his extraordinary skills. How awesome is he? This sort of trash can actually intimidate the talents of your 4 divine kingdoms. One can only imagine how lame you all are. Ha ha ha. The little monster continued to laugh maniacally. He had offended all the talents of the 4 divine kingdoms with his rude comments. However, the little monster didn't care. He didn't belong to any of the 4 divine kingdoms, nor did he belong to the 9 furnace martial house. As for the powerful masters at the Soul Sea realm, he would kill them all in the future. War Emperor York and several other rulers were also irked. This little monster was very conceited and had a strange personality. If it hadn't been for the fact that they couldn't defeat Zen themselves, they wouldn't have sent him to fight with Xena. However, none of the powerful warriors at the Soul Sea realm stepped forward to reprimand the little monster. They were counting on his innate magical energy to break through to higher levels. In the end, they had no choice but to let this mad freak mess around. What is going on? Zen wondered. After thinking for a moment, Lavender said, this could also be an ability that the Son of the Plane possesses. My cultivation level hasn't reached the level of a world lord, so I was unable to command a great world. The world lords in the upper world have shocking abilities. When a world lord controlled a great world, he was able to use it to help him bear the brunt of the damage. So when 2 world lords fought, they wouldn't suffer many injuries but the stars in their respective worlds exploded one by one. Hence, the battles between world lords were usually destructive. They could easily destroy thousands of stars. The little monster wasn't a world lord, but, as he was the son of the plane, he was the embodiment of the will of the great world, which was the reason why he had the ability to transfer the blows. In other words, this fellow is truly an indestructible presence. Zen asked with a frown. Not really. If you reach the Soul Sea realm and your own domain is strong enough, then you can trap him within your domain and cut off his connection to the great world. Then he won't be able to do anything about it, Lavender said flatly. Zen couldn't help but roll his eyes. He still had a long way to go before he could reach the Soul Sea realm. But the problem was, what should he do now? The little monster had vented and mocked to his heart's content, but the divine-level talents of the 4 divine kingdoms all remained silent. No one jumped out to refute or challenge him. He immediately felt bored. What he really wanted was for these idiots to get enraged by his words and come to fight him. Then he would give them a brutal beating. He had planned to torture them both mentally and physically, but no one was taking the bait. The game had become a little boring now. The little monster turned to stare at Zen with a mad look in his black eyes. I forgot that the battle between you and me hasn't finished yet. Hearing this, Zen suddenly distanced himself from the little monster. Are you scared? It's too late, the little monster said with a menacing smile on his face. Your talent is indeed much higher than those pigs. So I suppose you must taste better than them. With that he suddenly pounced on Zen, revealing his sharp teeth at the same time. Whoosh! Zen was crippled with fear. If this fellow could truly divert his full power, then Zen had no way of defeating him. With Zen's current strength, he could indeed topple mountains and cut off the rivers with ease. But the great world was so vast. When Zen's power poured into the little monster's body, it would fully get transferred to the great world. And it was impossible for Zen to destroy the entire universe. Even the powerful masters at the Soul Sea realm couldn't achieve that, let alone Zen. Perhaps the person who took Yan away from the ethereal spirit sect had the ability to achieve that. Therefore, Zen didn't attack again. He acted on conditioned reflex and retreated swiftly, instantly distancing himself from the little monster. However, in the limited space in the enchanted barrier, how could Zen deflect the little monster's attack? Suddenly Turner said, Zen, our Harlan Divine Kingdom admits defeat. Chapter 805, The Will of This World. Ever since Zen had begun cultivating, he had never admitted defeat. He had never even thought of giving up despite being in dire straits. However, Turner, the Emperor of the Harlan Divine Kingdom, could not hold it in. Turner was like Randy. Both were more loyal to friends, unlike the Crown Prince. This battle did not involve any huge interests. Victory or defeat was only a matter of fame. It was not like Turner would lose his throne if Zen lost the battle. If that was how it worked, then it was not Zen's turn to represent the Harlan Divine Kingdom. Even if Zen lost, it wouldn't be a big deal. He had already defeated Logan and Fiona, and had already earned the Harlan Divine Kingdom a lot of honor and pride. Besides the little monster, who else from the 4 divine kingdoms would dare to challenge Zen? Those princes and princesses. They might be slightly stronger than Logan, but they were probably not even a match for Fiona. There was no way they could challenge Zen. As for the little monster, he was a mystery to them. Even after so many years of studying, the masters at the Soul Sea realm still hadn't solved the mystery of his origins. Judging from the beastly nature, he was definitely not human. And their guess was probably right. The little monster was not human. He was just the embodiment of the will of this world, and was called the son of this plane. It was equivalent to being a spokesperson of this great world. After witnessing the battle for a while, Turner was sure that there was no better way for Zen to deal with the little monster. If this went on, the little monster would eat Zen's head. And this was not what Turner wanted to see. Randy heaved a long sigh of relief after he heard what his father said. Zen's performance had already surpassed his expectations, and his goal had been achieved. Now, he was naturally worried that the little monster would kill Zen. But since his father had stopped the battle, Zen should be safe. But War Emperor York and Marine wore expressions that did not bode well. Marine said coldly to Turner, Your Majesty, I'm afraid this does not look good, Turner looked at the Holy Maiden and asked with a smile, This is just a friendly competition before we activate the entrance to the Feather Holy Sea. After so many years, it has slowly become a competition to review the strength of the younger generation of our 4 divine kingdoms. Since it's just a competition, it's perfectly normal for players to admit defeat, right? Marine was just a young girl. She was rather naive when compared to Turner. She was at a loss for words at his little speech. War Emperor York, however, sneered, Turner, this guy just hurt Logan, the #1 warrior among the younger generation in my York Divine Kingdom. Right now, he's competing with another warrior of the York Divine Kingdom. He's no match for the little monster, and yet he wants to leave the arena just like that. Don't you think this is unfair? Turner knew that War Emperor York was unwilling to let Zen off the hook. So he smiled and said, when warriors compete with each other, there will be times when they will fail and get hurt. This is normal. Lucian Lu, I'm sure you understand this, eh? War Emperor York laughed and said loudly and clearly, the warriors of my York Divine Kingdom and your Harlan Divine Kingdom are in the midst of a battle. If Thad Luo admits defeat now, I believe he will also have some regret in his heart. To make sure that he doesn't regret anything, let's do this. Each of them can make only one move and the outcome of this battle will decide the winner. What do you think, eh? Turner's face darkened with each word that War Emperor York said. Lucian Lu has gone too far. I've already announced that the Harlan Divine Kingdom has been defeated, and I have admitted defeat on behalf of Thad Luo. But Lucian Lu still wants to let the two of them fight. What a jerk. It might be just one move, but it could be brilliant on so many counts. After all, the little monster can't be measured based on common sense. AI Dante A. Turner began. But War Emperor York interrupted him and said, since both sides have no objections, let's begin. A. The little monster leaned on the edge of the enchanted barrier and sneered at Zen, did you hear that? One move, I still have one more chance. Ha ha, one move is enough for me to kill you. Zen's face was stoic, but his mind was racing. He had heard the conversation taking place outside the enchanted barrier. Although Turner had admitted defeat on his behalf in plain words, the fact was that Zen was truly unwilling to admit defeat. The power of the little monster was indeed too great, but it didn't mean that Zen had no way of breaking it. He just hadn't thought of it yet. Because War Emperor York had interfered, the two of them had to exchange a last blow. But how could he subdue the little monster in one move? This was also a test for Zen. Most people present were guessing that Zen would definitely rack his brains to think of a way to avoid fighting the little monster. Little had they known that Zen would directly face the little monster instead of running away. There was a silence between the two for a few seconds during which neither moved. After that, the little monster suddenly said, are you ready? Zen Luo, I haven't shown this move to anyone, but this time, I'll let you have a taste of it. You can talk about it to the other ghosts after you die. Ha ha, Amidst his own wild laughter, the little monster suddenly began to exude an astonishing aura. This aura was not like that of a human's. The little monster seemed to have transformed into a towering mountain. It was like a vast and boundless ocean, an endless plain, or a mysterious and bizarre swamp. No one could exactly tell. The aura that the little monster was emitting was like that of the entire world. He is using the will of the entire world. No, he is the incarnation of the will of the world. He is using his will to suppress me. Zen thought, his mouth hanging open in shock. The little monster's originally wretched and ugly temperament seemed to have suddenly undergone a shocking change. In that instant, he represented the world, and this was also a sign that the will of the world was gradually awakening. The more it awakened, the more control the little monster had over the world. Everyone was stunned, looking on at the little monster, transfixed. The aura that the little monster was emitting was simply too enormous. Everyone felt themselves minuscule, like they were facing an enormous mountain, and before the majesty of its beauty, they looked and felt like ants. The problem was that the little monster's aura kept changing. Sometimes it would turn into a towering mountain, and sometimes it would turn into an unfathomable sea. These natural scenes were not something that humans could conquer. Although War Emperor York had sided with the little monster, this scene had also caused his face to darken. This was proof that the little monster had been suppressing his own strength in front of him and his cultivation level had been suppressed at the late stage of the virtual tribulation realm. War Emperor York hadn't expected his strength to have risen to this level. Just what was the little monster? Even the other masters at the Soul Sea realm felt uncomfortable. The little monster was too dangerous. Ever since the Nine Furnace Martial House had proposed to raise the little monster to the Soul Sea realm, many people had objected, afraid that they would be raising a snake in their bosom. This guy was not human at all. If he grew up, it would become difficult to control him. Now that they had seen the little monster's aura bursting out, many of the masters at the Soul Sea realm became even more worried. Although they could cultivate themselves with the help of the little monster's talent, what would happen if they couldn't control the little monster? Boom! Zen felt a white light flashing in his mind and a multicolored will entering it. He intends to use the will of the world to kill me. Zen thought, shocked. He did indeed possess a soul close to the Jasper fighting soul realm, but even so, it might not be able to resist the will of the world. Before Zen could react, the colorful will crashed into Zen's soul ruthlessly. Under the impact, cracks suddenly appeared on Zen's originally sturdy soul. What a strong willpower! Zen's soul began to retreat. Ha ha, Zen, isn't your soul very powerful? Similar to that of a warrior at the Soul Sea realm. even stronger than that of a mighty warrior at the Soul Sea realm. But how can it counter my attack? The colorful will turned towards Zen and laughed maniacally. Although this will was the will of the great world, it did not awaken in the end. The little monster was still controlling it. Chapter 806. The Embracing Souls. Zen did not speak. He knew that he had probably reached his most dangerous moment. Retreat. He couldn't possibly have his soul leave his body and give up his shell, right? And since he couldn't retreat, his only option was to fight head-on. Another silent collision. This time, Zen unleashed the spiritual thorn. But the thorn that was formed from his own soul shattered instantly the moment it came in contact with the colorful will. The will of the world was not something that his current level of soul could resist. Perhaps even a soul at the Jasper Fighting Soul realm would be unable to suppress the will of the world. A sense of despair rose in Zen's heart, clawing at his insides. Ha ha, despair, right, you are still too weak. The little monster said in Zen's mind. But at this moment, a roar echoed from the depths of Zen's mind. Roar. Zen realized that was the roar of the Cyan Dragon. A Cyan Dragon, Zen's brow creased slightly. Another roar accompanied the first. The Red Dragon had also awoken, sending a spine-chilling roar at the same time. They couldn't escape the mysterious furnace, but each of them roared and simultaneously launched an attack against the colorful will. At this, a deep sense of grief began to take over Zen's heart. The souls of the Cyan Dragon and Red Dragon hadn't been repaired a lot. Before this, they had only swallowed an owl beast. If their souls had been at their best, they would probably have had the qualifications to contend with the will of the world. But not when they were in this state. Roar, roar, the two soul attacks swept towards the colorful will, and two more soundless collisions occurred. Immediately after, on the mysterious furnace, the colors of the Cyan Dragons and the Red Dragon's bodies darkened quite a bit, and the will of the world only flickered once. It wasn't long before an even more gorgeous luster burst out and the little monster's voice sounded again. Interesting. There's actually a furnace in your body. And what's wrong with these dragons? Aren't dragons super legendary beasts? Why are they so weak? Tisk tisk. Before he had even finished speaking, the will of the world struck Zen yet again. After this collision, Zen retreated again. He could feel his soul trembling and the number of cracks on the surface of his soul increasing. It felt like it would break apart at any time. And this time, it was truly a matter of life and death for Zen. He probably wouldn't be able to make it through the next impact, causing despair to spread through him and appear starkly clear all over his face. Why don't you beg for mercy? Of course, I won't let you off even if you do beg, but you should act according to your circumstances. Right, Zen. The little monster barked a sinister laugh. Zen wasn't about to beg for mercy because he knew it was useless. So how could he compromise with the little monster? The despair on Zen's face was suddenly swept away at the little monster's words. Instead, a proud smile took its place. Even if he died, he would choose to die standing, not kneeling. That expression makes me very unhappy. The little monster said coldly as he saw the calm stubbornness on Zen's face. He chose to attack him directly. The will of the world shone brilliantly as it charged towards Zen. Zen slowly closed his eyes. He knew his soul would probably dissipate in a few seconds. But at this moment, another soul rammed into the will of the world. This soul's ferocity seemed to be no inferior to the will of the world, forcefully pushing the will of the world away from Zen. Zen opened his eyes, a tinge of sadness evident in them. Lavender. Lavender's soul had been nourished by the holy tree of the heavenly feather sacred place. However, she only had a sliver of her soul left. Even though it had grown stronger with the nourishment, it still wasn't able to resist the colorful will. Lavender's soul also dimmed, and cracks began to appear on its surface too. But she said to Zen firmly, you can't die. But Zen had wanted to say that he truly had no way to resist the will of the world. Not only him, but that there was no one in the entire world could possibly resist this will. Although the little monster wasn't utilizing the whole of the will of the world, just using this part was more than enough to kill him. Lavender said in a cold voice, Josh, right. And now, you're still hiding that thing, unwilling to use it even if your own soul is damaged. Using this thing involves a lot. They already noticed it when we tried to refine Zen's soul last time. If we use it again, I'm afraid, the Cyan Dragon replied worriedly. But Lavender wasn't giving up. Survival is most important. Trust me, Zen is the most suitable candidate. She said seriously. The Cyan Dragon was from the genuine dragon world, and Lavender was from the Demon Knight. These two worlds were so far apart that the genuine dragons and the demon knight members were not familiar with each other. However, the cyan dragon and Lavender were both famous figures in the upper world, and they had heard of each other before. Right now, their remnant souls lived inside Zen's body, and they were placing all their hopes on him. At Lavender's words, the cyan dragon went silent for a while, and then replied firmly, "You're right. Since we've already come this far, I should believe in Zen, At this, the gigantic, mysterious furnace in the depths of Zen's mind suddenly began to spin, causing its lid to slowly start opening. The black flames within the mysterious furnace appeared simultaneously. What is this? The little monster panicked when he saw this. Just a glance at the black flames frightened the little monster. It was as if the black flames could destroy everything. Even the heavens and earth were no exception. Although the little monster was rather arrogant, he had grown up in the Seven Water Forest, and his habits were similar to those of wild beasts. He was very sensitive to danger. The moment he saw the mysterious furnace and the black flames, he knew something was not right. Although Zen's soul was so close that he could kill him with just another attack, due to his instinctive fear and caution, the little monster chose to retreat at such a crucial moment. The colorful will began to retreat rapidly, wanting to break away from Zen's mind. You want to escape? Too late, the cyan dragon said with a sigh. Soon after, a ray of seven-colored light shot out from the mysterious furnace. As the ray of light gently swept across, it sucked the will of the world into it in a flash of light. Lavender's soul had become very weak, but when she saw this, she gave Zen a broad smile. After refining the will of the world, you can absorb it. If the absorption goes well, you will inherit the will of the world and become the son of the plane. As Lavender spoke, Zen's cracked soul floated towards her. He hugged her tightly. Two broken souls embraced each other in Zen's mind. Lavender was astonished at Zen's embrace. Her fiery red eyes flashed. Then she pursed her lips and closed her eyes. The mysterious furnace was still spinning slowly. After all, it was the will of the world. Even if this furnace wanted to completely refine it, it wouldn't be easy. On the square, everyone was staring blankly at the sky. Zen and the little monster were motionless, as if they were engaged in a soul battle. Zen already displayed the strength of his soul. His soul is not weaker than that of a mighty warrior at the Soul Sea realm. But the little monster is really confident. He actually dares to use his soul to suppress Zen. But didn't you see the aura the little monster was emitting just now? This guy isn't human at all. I feel that he just represented the entire world. What kind of nonsense did the little monster train in? Everyone looked at the sky fearfully as they quietly waited for the outcome of the battle. Chapter 807. Soul Nurturing Wood. 5 minutes had passed, but Zen and the little monster hadn't budged, standing still and motionlessly like statues. A soul-level confrontation would normally take a split second to finish, rarely stretching for this long. The confusion pulsed in the air, increasing with every second. The mysterious furnace continued to spin. After a long time, the lid of the mysterious furnace opened once again. The stream of multicolored wool left the furnace and floated quietly in Zen's mind, emitting a pure and multicolored light. The will of this great world seems to have become extremely pure, Zen said softly as he gazed at the brilliant luster that reflecting off the will. Previously, the little monster had controlled the will of the great world and had infused into it a trace of evil energy. Something of the little monster's nature had somewhat influenced the will of the great world. The cyan dragon said, his soul has already been refined and now, the will of this great world has no owner. You can devour this will, Zen, The cyan dragon was referring to the little monster. The soul of the little monster had been refined, which meant that the will of this great world had been purified. Lavender extracted her hands from Zen's and smiled, fatigue tinging her eyes. She then turned to him and said, go, Zen. Zen did not notice the tiredness on Lavender's face as he nodded and slowly approached the pure will. Zen was some distance away when the pure will began to flee from Zen, as if evading capture. Although the will of the great world itself hadn't awakened, this will was still able to perceive Zen's actions. It wasn't willing to be devoured by Zen. But no matter how far it fled, it was still circling in Zen's mind. It couldn't escape Zen's mind if no one was controlling it. So it was technically impossible for it to escape from Zen's hunt. Zen's soul finally caught up to the will soon after. The moment he touched the will, his soul trembled and a storm of information swept through Zen. Zen was drowning in a massive illusion and saw a world in front of him. Is this the projection of the entire great world? Countless mountains and rivers, boundless oceans, and trillions of creatures appeared before Zen's eyes. Human figures began to appear before Zen, one by one. The number of faces that popped up was astonishing. Among them were ordinary mortals, nature creatures, and even powerful warriors of the internal elixir realm, virtual tribulation realm, and soul sea realm. Are these all of the humans in this great world? These figures appeared in front of Zen and disappeared almost instantly. Zen had swept across all the humans in the great world in a matter of moments. That's Olivia. Olivia from the Purple Heart Sacred Place. The scenes flashed too fast and Zen was only able to catch a glimpse of Olivia's figure. After all, although Zen had gone to many places, the number of people he knew in the entire great world was too small. Soon after came all sorts of fierce beasts from across forests, secret lands, mountains, and seas, including all races of this great world. They spread out before Zen like paintings unfolding before his very eyes, and they disappeared in an instant. When all the images disappeared, Zen felt as if an enormous amount of memories had embedded themselves in his mind. These memories seem to contain information about all living beings from the dawn of time till now. They are the memories of this great world itself, Zen muttered, his heart skipping a beat. I wonder if I can access these memories, he thought. Moments later, a smile appeared on Zen's face. He had realized that it was easy for him to access these memories, almost instinctively. Soon enough, Zen found Letitia. Letitia was still lying down quietly in the heavenly stellar palace. The scene playing out in the memories was very clear. It felt to Zen that if he reached out a hand, he would be able to touch her. After he had left for the Divine Kingdom continent, Zen was most worried about Letitia. Although he had used the life stones to replenish her life force, it was far from enough. Now that he had seen Letitia safe and sound, his face relaxed into a pleasant smile. Zen sighed, emotional at the realization that the will of the great world had such great use. This way, wouldn't there be no secrets in this great world for Zen? Zen withdrew from the mass of memories. It was then that he realized that his soul had been completely restored when he had devoured the will of the great world, and the cracks on the surface of his soul had disappeared. Not only was his soul flashing a dark green color, but there was also a colorful shine to it. After refining the will of this great world, I have now become the son of the plane, Zen thought and looked at Lavender. His own soul had been restored, but the surface of Lavender's soul was still covered in countless cracks. She looked pale and her eyes were losing their shine. In the fight against the will of the great world, not only had Zen's soul been severely damaged, but even the souls of Lavender, the Cyan Dragon, and the Red Dragon had suffered damage to varying degrees. When Lavender met Zen's gaze, she smiled faintly at him and said, don't worry, I'm fine. I just need some time to recuperate. Zen shook his head and said seriously, I will help you recover your soul. The Cyan Dragon interjected flatly, by the time you find a way to recover her soul, it would probably have already vanished into thin air. Zen's heart dropped at the Cyan Dragon's words. What do you mean? He asked the Cyan Dragon nervously. The Cyan Dragon said, although her soul has been baptized by the life energy from the Demon Knight, it is still too weak. There's only a trace of it left. Right now her soul is on the verge of breaking apart. Lavender did not speak. She knew the state of her soul very well. Through a secret method, she had used the life energy to strengthen her soul a lot. But the brutal truth was that she had only a strand of soul remaining and she almost had no ability to repair herself. Lavender managed to crack a smile despite her knowledge. Of course she didn't want to die, to be more precise, she didn't want to perish. Her hatred to the other queen of the Demon Knight had not been settled yet, and it was still too early for her to have her soul dissipate. But she couldn't decide her own fate. Is there any way to recover her soul? Zen asked, a trace of desperation in his voice. Yes, the Cyan Dragon replied. What is it? Zen urged the dragon. If Lavender's soul perished because of him, he would feel guilty for the rest of his life. As long as there was a sliver of hope, he would go all out to try and save Lavender's soul. It's called the soul-nurturing wood. You can let her soul inhabit it and the wood would slowly nurture it, the Cyan Dragon said rather nonchalantly. Soul-nurturing wood. Zen's face hardened as he gritted his teeth. What even was the soul-nurturing wood? He had never heard of it and now he was supposed to find it. How? This is a treasure from the upper world. It's normal that you haven't heard of it, Lavender said. She didn't have much hope of finding the soul-nurturing wood in the lower world and looked dispirited. The upper world. Zen's gaze flickered as he said, I can enter the genuine dragon world to search for it. After the martial arts contest ended in Oracle City, the Dragon Soar Arena fell into the hands of the Ethereal Spirit Sect. When the Ethereal Spirit Sect had been destroyed, The Dragon Soar Arena was later occupied by the Heavenly Evil sect before being taken away by the World Commercial Alliance. In the end, the Dragon Soar Arena had gone back to Oracle City. Zen didn't think it a problem for him to ascend to the upper world. I'm afraid we won't be able to wait that long. Look at her, she probably won't last beyond 1 or 2 days, the Cyan Dragon said flatly. 1 or 2 days, even if Zen gave up exploring the Feather Holy Sea, he still wouldn't be able to return to the central region within that time. Moreover, if Zen gave up exploring the Feather Holy Sea now, he would have to wait for another year to obtain the life stones. But Letitia wouldn't be able to hold on for that long. At this point, Zen couldn't help but clench his jaw. He became even more anxious. What should he do? His eyes flashed and he finally noticed the large mass of memories in his mind. Would he be able to find the soul-nurturing wood through these memories? Chapter 808. The Wrath of War Emperor York. Light filtered through Zen's eyes and he blinked slightly. He had now merged himself with the will of this great world, so in a sense, the massive amount of memories belonged to him now. However, he couldn't fully digest the numerous memories, and could only observe them. Searching through memories was an easy task for him. All he had to do was to think about what he wanted to find. He filtered through them and not long after, he had found the information about the soul-nurturing wood. There really is one. It's in the Divine Kingdom continent. Zen exclaimed. His heart hammered excitedly in his chest. Thanks to luck and his talent, he had quickly found a soul-nurturing wood. It turned out that the Holy Maiden from the York Divine Kingdom was a Holy Maiden of a secret sect. The secret sect could open a channel called the Reverse Spirit Channel, which was used by the secret sect in the upper world to constantly send resources to them. It was known that the upper world was extremely rich in resources. They were so rich that the things they considered as trash turned into precious treasures when they reached the lower world. As Zen sifted through the memories, he noticed that the many treasures and materials that passed down the Reverse Spirit Channel had mostly been distributed to the 4 divine kingdoms. Moreover, 3 blocks of the soul-nurturing wood had been passed down through the Reverse Spirit Channel. 2 of them had been used already. 2 souls from 2 powerful warriors at the Soul Sea realm had inhabited 2 blocks of soul-nurturing wood. After they had entered the 5 aging processes, the 2 Soul Sea realm masters' lifespans would come to an end. Even such powerful warriors couldn't resist the 5 aging processes. In the end, they had no choice but to abandon their physical bodies and parasitize their souls in the soul-nurturing wood. Right now, there was still a piece of soul-nurturing wood left. However, it was in the hands of War King Wind of the Wind Divine Kingdom. The soul-nurturing wood had similar effect as the Immortal Mist's crystal ball. Back then, the Immortal Mist had parasitized his soul in the crystal ball, so in that way, he was able to keep his soul alive. War King Wind had also lived for more than 10,000 years, so he might have kept the soul-nurturing wood for himself. If he would enter the 5 aging processes one day, he would be able to parasitize his soul inside the soul-nurturing wood. A piece of soul-nurturing wood was enough for one soul to survive another 1,000 years. Soon enough, Zen withdrew himself from the memories with a determined look. He must obtain this soul-nurturing wood at all costs. At that point, Zen looked at Lavender again. Her face was ghostly pale and she looked drained. The dense cracks on the surface of her soul seemed to get bigger. It looked like she wouldn't be able to live through the day. Zen, I'm a bit tired, Lavender blinked and whispered. Her usually intimidating crimson eyes were now dim and lifeless. Zen drifted towards her and gently caressed Lavender's face. If you're tired, take a good rest. I'll get the soul-nurturing wood for you, Zen said softly. At that same moment on the Sea God continent, a commotion broke out in the Holy Tree Hall of the Heavenly Feather Sacred Place. Our queen, what happened to her? The queen's statue is getting dimmer and dimmer. It's on the edge of being extinguished. Could it be that something happened to Zen? Go and call Amber over. The extinguishment of a queen's statue was definitely a sign of a huge disaster for the Demon Knight. In fact, it was not only the Heavenly Feather Sacred Place that was in shock. There were thousands of sacred places of the Demon Knight across the millions of great worlds, and this phenomenon was felt by all the members of the whole Demon Knight. Everyone was rightfully worried. Meanwhile in the upper world, the great worlds controlled by the Demon Knight closely watched the changes in the Queen's statue as well. The Demon Knight race controlled many great worlds in the upper world, and these great worlds were established with 3 of them as the core. The core 3 great worlds represented the 3 queens of the Demon Knight race. They were the Dark Demon World, the Heavenly Fox World, and the Blood Knight World. At that point, a woman in a light blue feathered dress who stood on the star in the center of the Dark Demon World coldly stared at the 3 queens' statues. Her gaze was fixed in the statue of the Queen of Killings. Ha ha ha, this little jerk is so stubborn and reluctant to admit defeat. It seems that her days are numbered. I've originally planned to send a few people down reverse spirit channel to kill that guy destined to lead the world of chaos. But now, it looks like I don't have to do anything. It has saved me so much effort. The owner of the malicious voice turned out to be the queen who was in charge of the punishment in the Demon Night. Back then, her queen's statue had fought Zen and was eventually defeated. Later her statue was smashed by Lavender. She was also Lavender's greatest enemy. When she noticed that Lavender's statue was getting dimmer by the minute, she knew that Lavender's soul was on the verge of collapsing. In fact, during their last confrontation, she had known that Lavender lived in the body of a man, who was greatly destined to lead the world of chaos. At that time, she felt uneasy with the knowledge. As long as Lavender was alive, the Demon Knight wouldn't appoint a new Queen of Killings. This fact greatly stressed her out. But now, the tables had been turned. She was ecstatic when Lavender's statue had dimmed and lost its luster. After a few moments, Zen opened his eyes and was greeted by the inside of the enchanted barrier. He felt a sense of familiarity the moment he saw what was in front of him, even if somehow the entire world had changed drastically. He felt that everything around him was extremely familiar. With a little bit of thought, he would be able to know every person's faces, names, their past, and even their secrets as long as he wanted. Aside from humans, he could even trace back the origins of every tree, leaf, or grain of sand. Of course, Zen wasn't that bored to search for those things. When he opened his eyes, the little monster still stood there dumbly like a log. Zen strode towards him and gently pushed his forehead, then the small body fell onto the ground with a dull thud. The mysterious furnace quickly wiped out the little monster's soul. Right now, the little monster was just a walking corpse. No matter how strong his life force was, he wouldn't live for long. Wow, did you see it? The little monster fell. When the martial artists saw this, they all went into a frenzied uproar. Thad won. Thad really won. The little monster was knocked out. That little monster wanted death. He actually used his soul to attack Thad. Has he become a simpleton? Heavens. If that little monster has become a simpleton, the Nine Furnace Martial House wouldn't let Thad go. In the eyes of the divine level talents below, the little monster's life wasn't important. No matter what, they wouldn't have the chance to spar with him and absorb his talent. Besides, the little monster had always been a hateful creature. Lots of people loathed him, like Fiona. When she saw that Zen had won, her lips cracked into a smile. She had never killed anyone in her life, but this little monster had been a nightmare to her. Even if he died, she wouldn't even bother to feel pity. Many of the divine level talents felt good, but the faces of the masters at the Soul Sea realm looked the opposite. These powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm still waited anxiously for the little monster to enter the life and death realm. Once the little monster reached the life and death realm, his talent would help those said powerful masters, and help them break through the Soul Sea realm. Once a martial practitioner reached the Soul Sea realm, that would probably be their only goal. However, Zen had killed the little monster already. Even Turner, who was quiet throughout the fight, looked mad. Zen, you actually dared to kill this little monster's soul. You're courting death, an angry voice shouted. War Emperor York trembled with rage. He had never been so angry at a young man in his life as the ruler of the York Divine Kingdom. Many of the divine level talents' faces suddenly changed when they saw War Emperor York's furious expression. Even Turner and the other powerful warriors at the Soul Sea realm watched him apprehensively. It seemed that War Emperor York wanted to challenge Zen. Turner mentally sighed. He regretted it when he didn't tell Zen not to kill the little monster. Although the little monster was alive in some way, he was still no different from the dead. However, Turner and the other powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm were also very curious. How did Zen kill the soul of the little monster? They had studied the little monster for so many years, but had never been able to unravel the mystery about him. But, they knew that this little monster was basically an immortal being. Not only was the little monster's body indestructible, his soul was also quite special. He emitted a strange light all the time. Even the soul of a Soul Sea realm master at the Fighting Soul realm couldn't compare to his soul. Thus, how did Zen kill it? Chapter 809, A Punch. Feeling lost, Turner stayed silent and didn't dare to argue with War Emperor York. However, his son, Randy couldn't help but step up and speak for Zen. War Emperor York, damages and injuries can't be avoided when warriors fight with each other in a battle. Why did you blame this on Thad? Other warriors couldn't help but be surprised by Randy's statement. Even Zen was astonished too. The fact that Randy had the courage to step up and speak to War Emperor York was already a feat worthy of praise. Shut up. How dare you scold me? Who do you think you are? If you dare to talk any more, I'll immediately kill you. War Emperor York was infuriated and he immediately shouted at Randy. He was too mad to choose what words would escape his mouth. Although Randy was highly regarded by Turner, he was just a prince who got a title in the Harlan Divine Kingdom. He was not even the crown prince. And now his father Turner had remained silent. It was not Randy's place to criticize War Emperor York. It seemed foolish to other powerful warriors what Randy did. However, when War Emperor York roared at Randy, Turner couldn't bear it any longer. After all, Randy was his son. Turner said coldly, Lucian, what do you mean by that? How could you say that to my son in front of me? What do I mean? You try to guess. Humph. War Emperor York did not have the time to waste with Turner. All he wanted was to vent his anger on Zen. They were not worthy of his attention right now. However, at this time, Zen laughed wildly. Haha, War Emperor York, you're the ruler of a divine kingdom and the emperor of the many martial artists, but it surprised me that you don't even know the rules. Why were you so mad if what I only did was defend myself? Just now, that little monster wanted to destroy my soul. If I don't counterattack, do you expect me to sit by and wait for him to destroy my soul just like that? That's absurd. If I haven't fought back, I might be the one whose soul got destroyed. How was that? That is truly the case of courting death. And in the end, my death would only be something you would think serves me right. Why don't we be frank here this time? Look at you. You are the dignified and respectable ruler of a divine kingdom, but you are so mean to me. You lost the battle and disgraced yourself. You made a laughingstock of yourself. The words that tumbled out from Zen's mouth were loud and clear. Everyone around heard those words too, making them think of War Emperor York as a joke. When War Emperor York saw that Zen wasn't intimidated in the slightest by his aura and was instead reprimanding him in such an arrogant manner, he was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. At the top of it, Zen even dared to scold an emperor like him. When had he, a dignified ruler of a divine kingdom, been taught a lesson by a kid at the virtual tribulation realm? Thinking of this made him sick in disgust. What was more, that guy had just defeated his people. How could he not get furious? He couldn't restrain himself anymore. What had happened to this world? For a moment, War Emperor York felt that the world seemed to have changed. And that was because of a young human warrior who dared to mess up with him. Meanwhile, many divine-level talents nodded their heads at Zen's words. On the one hand, they admired Zen's courage. When facing the enraged War Emperor York, he was so calm and even dared to refute War Emperor York with clear points. On the other hand, they were worried for Zen because War Emperor York was a powerful master at the Soul Sea realm. And the fact he was a War Emperor meant that he was stronger than general powerful masters at Soul Sea realm. Zen might face death any moment now because he infuriated the Emperor. In front of many powerful warriors, Zen had thoroughly offended War Emperor York and provoked him into making a move. He probably wouldn't be able to escape death in the end. Ha ha. Good, pretty good. I've lived for 8,000 years, and an 8,000-year-old man like me had to be educated by a 20-year-old kid. Zen, you're really not bad, right? You're so brilliant and I really admire your kitty courage. War Emperor York broke out into an angry laugh. He had now reached his limits. Then, he took a step forward, breaking into the enchanted barrier and arriving before Zen without hesitation. Their gazes met. Their eyes were full of blazing stare with fuming rage. No one could come between them. The mighty oppressing force from the soul of War Emperor York came as if hundreds of mountains were crashing down on Zen. It was too powerful that even the spectators were badly affected by that skill. Previously, Zen had been unafraid of his soul suppression. Now that Zen's soul had fused with the will of the great world, there was not a single trace of fear on his face. That aura did not have any effect on Zen even a tiny bit. However, Zen was mad inside, so he wouldn't restrain himself and let the Emperor be victorious. Zen stood firmly and remained unaffected. But the divine-level talents below had to suffer. It was inevitable because War Emperor York's attack was too powerful to take for their levels. War Emperor York was furious and he only wanted to take Zen's life. How would he care about the surroundings? He wouldn't waste time for these lowly creatures. Soul pressure gushed out like water. No one could stop him. He was venting his anger. As a result, the faces of the many divine-level talents all became deathly pale. Many of the weaker martial artists even fell to the ground, rolling their eyes and fainting on the spot. Zen's attention diverted to them, but he didn't ignore War Emperor York's moves. Ha ha ha, yes, you're right, damages and injuries can't be avoided when warriors fight with each other. However, an eye for an eye. I will not be put upon. You, Zen, killed my son, and then the little monster. I have to settle accounts with you in the end. I have had enough of your arrogance. War Emperor York said coldly yet full of fiery anger. However, Zen was still calm. He didn't refute War Emperor York's claim about his identity. Whether he admitted it or not, War Emperor York didn't believe that he was Thad. Thus, Zen asked straightforwardly, how do you want to settle the accounts? Tell me, War Emperor York took a deep breath. The little monster was a trump card of War Emperor York. It was also because of this trump card that the York Divine Kingdom took a great advantage in the competitions within the 4 Divine Kingdoms. Now that the little monster was gone, his kingdom would suffer greatly. Firstly, the little monster could practice with the princes and help them cultivate faster. Secondly, once the little monster reached the life and death realm, sooner or later he could help the mighty warriors at the Soul Sea realm. Everyone eagerly waited for the little monster to grow. But it went in vain all of a sudden because of Zen. It was precisely because of these reasons that the other 3 rulers of the Divine Kingdoms had given way to War Emperor York on many matters. Even when it came to the distribution of the resources coming down from the reverse spirit channel, the York Divine Kingdom would usually obtain far more amount than the other 3. That was how the little monster was so useful to the York Divine Kingdom and its people. Now that the little monster had become a simpleton, he had suffered great losses. It was too big loss that he couldn't simply let Zen escape easily from his wrath. How? Why are you even asking a question with an obvious answer? Of course, you have to pay with your life, you foolish man. Now I will give you a chance. If you can take a punch from me, then I'll let you go. Ha, there's no way a mere human kid like you can do that, so prepare to die, he said, feeling insane. A sinister smile appeared on the face of War Emperor York. Right now, he was not in the right mind to take about anything else other than killing Zen. Fiona, who was at the top of the stairs, suddenly covered her mouth with astonishment. This scene was too horrible to witness. Let Zen take a punch from an almighty warrior at the Soul Sea realm. That could not happen. Wasn't that equivalent to killing him? He would probably die at this rate. As Fiona thought of this, a trace of sadness reflected in her charming eyes. She admitted that she couldn't help but get worried about Zen's safety at the moment. She was aware of how powerful War Emperor York was. Randy closed his eyes and clenched his teeth, looking very miserable at the sight of the scene. Even a lord like him would not dare to take a punch from War Emperor York. If it was a master at the life and death realm whom Zen had to face, he might have the chance to battle against him. With Zen's powerful body, he might be able to withstand a punch from a life and death realm master. But for some powerful warrior at the Soul Sea realm like War Emperor York, the chance for Zen to survive was slim. It was too impossible. Zen was doomed, and he couldn't escape now. At the same time, Zen's heart beat faster when he heard the words of War Emperor York. It was true that the strength of a powerful warrior at the Soul Sea realm was beyond imagination, but Zen had just merged with the will of this great world. Previously, the little monster was able to easily block Zen's attack. Even Zen had exploited all his strength, the little monster was able to divert his strength to the surrounding mountains. Then, what could War Emperor York do? After Zen had merged with the will of the great world, he had a sense of familiarity with everything around. It was as if he had established a special connection with this world. If he could use the mountains, rivers, and lakes in the surroundings to block the punch of War Emperor York, then this might be a good solution to this problem. It might save him this way. There was no other way for him to decline this offer because this would cause fewer casualties than going in an all-around fight with the Emperor, where he had little chance to win. After thinking for a while, Zen said calmly, okay, I agree. I will take it. Agree. Did he really say he agreed? Even War Emperor York was a bit taken aback to hear Zen's answer. Zen had actually agreed just like that. How brave and reckless could this kid be? At first, War Emperor York had thought that Zen was going to argue with him, struggling to make him spare his life with some smart words. If Zen did that, War Emperor York would totally ignore him. Since they were all fighters, they both should understand the rules of martial artists' world. A mere warrior at the virtual tribulation realm was trying to reason with War Emperor York, a mighty man of the Soul Sea realm. There was no space for mercy and empathy. It would be such a big joke. In the battles among warriors, the law of the jungle often prevailed. The world of martial artists was cruel. If Zen wanted to reason with him, he should at least be more powerful than him. In other words, strength and fists had the say above everything. No more pleading and tug of war. However, Zen hadn't thought of reasoning at all and had agreed just like that. It was foolish for everyone around. War Emperor York smiled instead. Do you really think you can block my attack? With pure sincerity, Zen shook his head and said, I'm not sure. Ha 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 ha. War Emperor York let out a hysterical laugh. He was guessing Zen's thoughts. Perhaps this kid thought that he could really resist a punch from him. He was simply too naive. How come he encountered a kid like him? As his laughter gradually faded, a cold stare came after. Then War Emperor York lazily said, since you're so straightforward, I can really give you a chance. I will only use 80% of my strength in this punch. How about this? 80% of his strength. A powerful warrior at the Soul Sea realm shook his head in silence. Zen had no chance to survive. This would be his deadly fate. Only powerful warriors at the Soul Sea realm knew how terrifying the power of Soul Sea realm masters was. After a Soul Sea realm master formed the Soul Sea in his body and created his own world, the life vitality gathered in his body was as vast as the ocean. If the master condensed the life vitality and threw a punch, the power would be unimaginable. If possible, a warrior would prefer to kill himself than take a punch from a Soul Sea realm master. Even if War Emperor York used only 30% of his strength, Zen would still be killed, not to mention 80% of his strength. This was the thought that was shared by the powerful warriors at the Soul Sea realm present. What they could feel right now was only pity for Zen, and not even the tiniest bit of expectation that he would survive. Zen's gaze was as calm as water. He nodded his head. He was also uncertain about the outcome, but he did not have a better choice at the moment. However, the will of the great world in his own body, which was a sacred weapon, had given Zen some confidence, which was why he agreed so readily. He was relying on them right now. A cold smile appeared on the face of War Emperor York, thinking that he could finally avenge his son's death and his loss of the little monster now. He had really begun to accumulate his life vitality. But at this moment, another voice suddenly rang out from the stairs, wait. Gasping their breaths, everyone was intently watching Zen's impending death. However, as a voice interrupted, everyone's attention was diverted to the origin of the voice. The one who spoke was actually the daughter of War King Wind, Fiona. Chapter 810, Spitting Blood. Fiona's interruption made War Emperor York completely out of patience. His face darkened as he turned furiously to War King Wind and spat, discipline your daughter. But even War King Wind was clueless at what his daughter wanted to do. Fiona's figure lightly floated towards the enchanted barrier. She landed just at the edge and promptly stretched out her left arm. The bracelet on her arm vibrated before sliding off her. She lightly hooked her finger on the bracelet and held it out for Zen. I will lend this to you, she told him. There was a collective gasp at Fiona's actions. Even Zen himself was caught off guard. The bracelet she was offering wasn't just a mere trinket. It was a semi-divine weapon. How could she just lend it to Zen so casually? This can greatly enhance your strength. She said, urging Zen to accept her offer. A smile appeared on Zen's face when he realized how serious the princess was. Thank you for your good intentions, but I don't think I'll need it. Fiona blinked innocently at his words. What? Why won't you need it? This display of tenderness made War Emperor York irate and impatient. Little girl, he said to Fiona. This enchanted barrier wasn't made to withstand the power of my fist, so I suggest you stand far away from us, or you'll only end up getting hurt. Hearing this, War King Wind couldn't idly sit by in the stands. He immediately rushed towards the enchanted barrier and pulled his daughter away from the chaos that was about to ensue within the arena. War Emperor York was a Soul Sea realm master, after all, and nobody knew if the enchanted barrier would hold up against his attacks. Those near the enchanted barrier were thrown into a mild panic. If the enchanted barrier failed, they were dead meat. In an instant, all divine-level talents quickly retreated from the square and put a distance of around 10,000 feet between them and the enchanted barrier. The Life and Death Realm warriors and Soul Sea Realm warriors, however, remained unbothered. Their strength was enough to withstand a punch from War Emperor York. War Emperor York turned to Zen. You brought this upon yourself, you brat. You only have yourself to blame for angering the York Divine Kingdom. Go to perdition, His fist flashed with purple light as he hurled a punch towards Zen. In War Emperor York's mind, Zen was already a dead man. All the warriors present thought the same thing. The power of a Soul Sea Realm master was no joke, and anyone who faced one would be doomed to die. War Emperor York's strike was the first attack Zen had ever faced from a Soul Sea Realm Master. The punch seemed to have gathered its strength by sucking away the power of the surrounding air. Zen watched closely as his opponent's fist inched closer to his gut. He roared inwardly, "Transfer the strength." The thought flashed in his mind as he immediately established a connection with the entire West Dragon River just as War Emperor York's attack reached him. The punch was powerful, but Zen was able to make the connection just in the nick of time. Bang! The sound was similar to a muffled explosion as War Emperor York's fist blasted through Zen's body. Even if his body is tough, that punch is really powerful. There's no way he would survive. I don't think there's even going to be anything left of him. Just how powerful is War Emperor York? What a pity. He is such a talented young man. But the audience spoke too soon and they were not prepared for the scene that awaited them once the dust settled. Am I seeing things? Someone mumbled in disbelief. The distance the spectators had retreated to was so far that even a virtual Tribulation Realm warrior had trouble seeing the warriors in the enchanted barrier clearly. But there was no mistaking it. Zen hadn't been reduced to ashes. In fact, he hadn't even moved from his spot at all. A few miles away, two mountains along the West Dragon River began to crumble. Zen was, at the moment, trying to resist 80% of War Emperor York's power by funneling it to the entire West Dragon River that now roared violently as a result. Meanwhile, the mountain ranges surrounding the river all began to erupt ominously with a series of violent sounds, causing smoke and dust to cover the skies and the entire West Dragon River. More than 20 mountains by the side of the river collapsed simultaneously. The scene shocked Zen to the core. War Emperor York's punch contained only 80% of his strength, but it was enough to crumble 20 strong mountains into dust. He was simply too powerful. Good thing Zen had rerouted the force of his attack, or else it would have been him who was in trouble. It was also good that his sacred weapon's physique had been enough to bear the minimum percentage that he hadn't rerouted. There was a whir and then a roaring gale, throwing everything into chaos. Everyone was caught in the billowing smoke and sudden dust storm that were the direct result of War Emperor York's attack. Thankfully, everything calmed down after a couple of lengthy minutes. Both Zen and War Emperor York remained standing within the enchanted barrier. I'm not seeing things, am I? One of the divine-level talented spectators had his mouth open at the scene in front of him. Thad Luoa, he's safe and sound. What happened just now? Didn't the mountains by the West Dragon River just collapse? How is he fine? Thad seems to have inherited the little monster's ability. Back then, didn't the little monster also use this skill to transfer Thad's power to the two mountains by the West Dragon River? It seems Zen also has this power now. What's going on? Could it be that Zen has also acquired the little monster's power? Nobody could be certain. It wasn't just the spectators, even the Soul Sea Realm Masters were stunned at the current state of things. What was going on? How did Zen do it? Since when did he figure out how to transfer power? Did he truly acquire the little monster's ability? He must have, since he used it just now. This immediately gave all of them hope. The little monster's ability had served as the hope of the Soul Sea Realm Masters in one day making a breakthrough above the Soul Sea Realm. However, when Zen turned the little monster into an idiot, all their hopes had been dashed and Turner was unable to stand out to help Zen. But, with what they saw just now, Zen had inherited the little monster's ability, which meant there was hope for them once again. War Emperor York, however, thought differently. He raised his fist, now fully intent to display the full, 100% extent of his power. The little monster had previously been under his control and he benefited a lot from him. However, since it turned out that Zen had inherited the little monster's ability, then the other Soul Sea Realm Masters would be the ones to utilize it while War Emperor York would be left in the dust. He had to kill Zen right here, right now. War Emperor York did not care whether or not Zen inherited the little monster's ability. All he thought about then was Zen's quick death at his hands. Lucian Lu, stop that right now, Turner shouted. Lucian Lu, let's investigate first. What if Thad Luo, War King Wind followed. Unfortunately, War Emperor York's attack was just too fast and his fist was already close to Zen's face. Zen's expression darkened. Do you actually think that 100% of your power can take me down? You are going back on your word. How shameless. He grumbled, forcing all the dragon scales in his body to activate. With this activation of the dragon scales, Zen's strength wasn't that much weaker than War Emperor York's. Moreover, he had the skill to transfer any attack dealt to him just like what he did earlier. Meanwhile, the force of Zen's dragon scales and the eruption of his forceful energy and life vitality were to be taken all at once by War Emperor York. Zen's actions took War Emperor York aback, especially now that the power that emanated from the young man was so terrifying. When Zen's fist landed on him, it felt like taking on the force of an entire mountain. The punch sent War Emperor York flying and he spat out a lot of blood once he landed. Chapter 811, Conformity and Defiance of Natural Laws. The other emperors had originally intended to stop War Emperor York, but none of them expected Zen's counterattack could actually send him flying while bleeding out of his mouth. In the previous battle, Zen had relied solely on his own strength to wreck Logan's space armor. It was known to everyone that Zen had the strength that was more powerful than that of ordinary martial artists. However, they didn't have it in prospect that his abilities could stretch out even further. His strength was impeccable. Silence had reigned at the scene once again. How enormous was the difference between a warrior at the virtual tribulation realm and a powerful master at the soul sea realm? It was beyond imagination. A warrior at the virtual tribulation realm had managed to scathe a powerful master at the soul sea realm. It was quite hard to grasp. Even the old freaks who had lived for tens of thousands of years had never heard of such a thing. The higher one's cultivation was, the deeper insight one had regarding laws and strength, but it had made it more difficult for the cultivator to challenge warriors at higher levels. For a nature creature to challenge a warrior at the illuminating soul realm, it wasn't such a difficult task for many divine-level talents. If a warrior at the virtual tribulation realm challenged a master at the life and death realm, it was believed to be difficult. But for a master at the life and death realm to challenge a mighty warrior at the soul sea realm, it was something impossible. However, the mighty warriors at the soul sea realm present at the scene knew War Emperor York's strength all too well. He had been too careless and even underestimated his opponent's abilities. Because Zen was only at the middle stage of the virtual tribulation realm, he didn't bother activating his life vitality to protect himself, nor had he employed the power of his domain. If War Emperor York had opened up his domain and used it to his advantage, then Zen couldn't have been able to fight back. That was his biggest mistake. It was pride most likely. A mighty warrior at the soul sea realm who activated his domain just to deal with a warrior at the virtual tribulation realm. If such a thing spread out, his reputation could be stained. It was to be considered ludicrous, a sign of weakness. To add, War Emperor York was sent flying several hundred feet away. His eyes glinted with a strong intent to murder. If that gaze of his could kill, then Zen could have already died 1,000 times. The punch that Zen launched towards him was so strong that he started to bleed. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth with one hand, he felt humiliated. It was witnessed by so many people, including the divine-level talents and princes of the York Divine Kingdom. Although you're only at the virtual tribulation realm, the strength that you have is enough to become my opponent, War Emperor York coldly said, the previous murderous expression on his face now replaced with a strong sense of fighting spirit. As he reached the soul sea realm, his warrior spirit had been thoroughly baptized through numerous battles. He knew the ropes of that life, as it was the only life he knew. He had full control of his state of mind and kept it in check at all times. War Emperor York handled his emotions quite well. At that particular moment, he no longer belittled Zen. After all, no matter how much he looked down on the guy, it was undeniable that he had managed to injure him. Thus, War Emperor York did the honorable thing of acknowledging Zen's strength. Even if he was only at the virtual tribulation realm, War Emperor York regarded him as an important opponent. Fighting with a mighty warrior of the soul sea realm can be a precious experience for you. Let me show you my domain. War Emperor York said, with a small smile playing on his lips. Then, white threads began to float in the air around him. Those threads began to intertwine with one another, forming small cocoons. A cloud thread domain. A mighty warrior of the soul sea realm could set his own rules within a limited range, but the warrior could never ignore all the earthly and heavenly rules. Once a warrior reached the soul sea realm, his strength could develop in two different directions. The warrior could make his own rules. The better the warrior could control his domain, the stronger the power of his domain could become. The other choice for the warrior was to follow the heavenly and earthly rules, which meant to comprehend rules at higher levels in both the heavens and earth. The situation in which one was able to control one's domain according to one's own rules was called a defiance of the natural lasa, while the situation in which the warrior grasped the rules at the higher levels in the heavens and earth was called a compliance of the natural lasa. In the upper world, there were martial artists that defied the laws of nature. They abandoned all the rules of the heavens and earth and focused on arranging their own domains and creating new rules instead. At the same time, they excluded all other rules of the heavens and earth. However, it was extremely difficult for a martial artist to completely do so. As for the martial artists who chose to follow the laws of nature, they were to give up on developing their domains and wholeheartedly learn to comprehend 7, 8, and even 9 layers of the original law, but the higher layers of law power were usually unfathomable and thus more difficult to comprehend. Whether it was to defy or follow the laws of nature, they were both approaches for warriors to become more powerful. However, the vast majority of martial artists practiced both at the same time. Since War Emperor York had finally brought out his domain, it only meant that he was more determined to kill Zen than ever. No matter what Zen's capabilities were, it would all be useless if he were to be enclosed in War Emperor York's domain. Zen's face darkened. Although he had merged with the will of the great world, it didn't necessarily mean that he was invincible. The domain of a powerful master at the Soul Sea realm was enough to cut off his connection with this great world. Am I going to die this time? He thought to himself. At that very moment, Turner appeared right in front of Zen. He then turned to War Emperor York and said, Lucian, why are you so eager to kill such a young kid? Because Zen had inherited the talent of the little monster, War King Wind and Scott also stepped forward. Unlike Turner, they didn't stand before Zen. Instead, they spoke for Turner. Lucian, Thad didn't do anything wrong. Why must you go for the kill? You mentioned earlier that after the little monster broke through, his innate talent could help us break through as well. It is true that the little monster's soul was destroyed by Thad and he now amounts to nothing. But since he has inherited the little monster's talent, isn't that our only hope to break through now? Thanks to the little monster, the York Divine Kingdom had gained countless benefits over the years. The powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm had been impatiently waiting for the little monster to break through to the life and death realm. He was dead for sure, but Zen had somehow managed to obtain his talent. For War Emperor York, that was an unacceptable circumstance. To the other powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm, it didn't matter where the person was from as long as they got the help they needed to break through. Perhaps that Thad was more reliable than the little monster. What War King Wind and Scott said echoed in the thoughts of the other powerful masters at the Soul Sea realm as they all nodded their heads in what seemed to be an agreement. The expression on War Emperor York's face changed. He looked at Turner who stood in his way and said, those who get in my way shall die. Seeing that War Emperor York was persistent and didn't plan on backing down, Turner was enraged. He had always been a yes man among many of the powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm. He was amiable and wasn't one to do something rashly. Back in the day, Turner had tolerated War Emperor York for countless times. Now that he stood in front of Zen, he had no other intentions but to protect him. It surprised him how War Emperor York still spoke to him so insolently. Die. Lucian, should we have a fight just to see who dies first? Turner's eyes flickered as he began to give off a powerful aura. Both Turner and Lucian were on the same level in regard to cultivation. They were all at the peak of the Soul Sea realm. Due to their confinement to the lower world, there was no way for them to cross that level. But in terms of power, Turner had lived for more than 10,000 years and was more than 5,000 years older than Lucian. As long as Turner hadn't yet entered the 5 aging processes, Lucian couldn't just easily defeat him. Is this for real? The powerful warriors at the Soul Sea realm are going to fight. From the very moment I was born, I have never seen a battle between 2 mighty warriors of the Soul Sea realm. Wouldn't the heavens and the earth be destroyed if all their powers are released for battle? Idiot. If the Harlan Divine Kingdom really does fight against the York Divine Kingdom, then it can provoke a war of the Divine Kingdoms. Everyone will suffer. Maybe one day you'll become nothing but cannon fodder. Seeing such a scene, many of the warriors at the Virtual Tribulation realm wondered if the 2 powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm would really begin to fight. Were they to run away to avoid getting hurt? Turner's response got rid of War Emperor York's aggression and arrogance altogether. It was known that Turner was indeed a good-natured man. He didn't use his own strength to suppress others. However, in terms of strength, he was probably the strongest one among the 4 rulers present. His abilities were no less than those of the retired Soul Sea realm masters who lived in seclusion. With the knowledge of Turner's powerful strength and his firm stand on the matter, Lucian didn't intend on making a move anymore. Coldly glancing at Lucian, Turner announced, in that case, the warrior from our Harlan Divine Kingdom has won this battle. Lucian glared at Zen. He was extremely displeased about the outcome of their duel. He snorted coldly and walked up to the stairs. Both War King Wind and Scott also took one last glance at Zen. War King Wind even gave him a kind smile as he returned to the stairs as well. Chapter 812. A difficult question to answer. Zen was stunned when he saw the gentle smile on War King Wind's face. What did his smile mean? Why was a dignified War King acting so polite to him? He was a nobody. Though curious, Zen felt grateful. Turner had protected him time and time again. He bowed to Turner and said, Thank you, Your Majesty, Turner shook his head and said, There's no need for you to thank me. In fact, I should be the one thanking you. On behalf of the people of the Harlan Divine Kingdom, thank you. Zen fought in the battle representing Lord Randy and the Harlan Divine Kingdom. The battle between him and the little monster had ended and Zen had been victorious. From now on no one would ever dare to challenge him again. Zen was able to neutralize a full-powered strike from a Soul Sea Realm Master, which was an extremely powerful move. So now none of the warriors at the virtual tribulation realm would dare to fight him. If any of them did, they would suffer great humiliation. Besides, this battle had been an evaluation of the warriors without involving any interest from any of the parties. Lord Randy suddenly asked with a smile, Father, since Zen won the battle, what reward will you offer him? A reward. But of course, how could I forget? Turner turned to Zen and asked, I hear you have an urgent need for life stones, am I right? We have a few left in our treasure house. Those, Zen interrupted Turner, refusing his offer. Thank you, Your Majesty, but I don't need the life stones now. Zen didn't know exactly how many life stones were in the Harlan Divine Kingdom. He had been told that most of the life stones would be used up instantly after they were discovered, and because their stock wasn't large, a dozen life stones wouldn't be enough to save Letitia's life. Zen decided to go looking for more life stones on his own in the Feather Holy Sea. He was now mostly concerned about Lavender, who had fallen into a deep sleep. Her weak soul was now like a candle in the wind. It could be extinguished at any time, so he had to work fast. He needed to find a piece of soul-nurturing wood in order to save her. Are you sure, my friend? Turner was surprised. He knew Zen had been eagerly inquiring about the life stones, but now he was rejecting his offer without a second thought. He couldn't figure out why. Since you don't want the life stones, what can I offer you instead? Zen cupped his hands and begged eagerly, Your Majesty, I would like a piece of soul-nurturing wood. Soul-nurturing wood? Turner raised his eyebrows and stared at Zen with a curious look. The soul-nurturing wood served as a container for souls. Under normal circumstances it was useless. Why would Zen want it so eagerly? Turner didn't have any soul-nurturing wood, but that didn't deviate his curiosity. He sighed helplessly and said, Sorry, my friend, but we don't have any soul-nurturing wood in our Harlan Divine Kingdom. Once there was a piece of soul-nurturing wood in the Harlan Divine Kingdom, but it was used to store the soul of a Soul Sea Realm Master. Turner had no idea where he could find one for Zen. Zen was expecting this answer from Turner. He had never asked anyone for a reward before, but he needed the soul-nurturing wood to help Lavender. He had no other choice but to be honest and say, I know that there's no soul-nurturing wood in the Harlan Divine Kingdom, but, Zen stopped. He looked at War King Wind and Fiona. He then turned back to Turner and continued, as far as I know, there is another piece of soul-nurturing wood in the Wind Divine Kingdom. War King Wind was taken aback by Zen's words. There was indeed a piece of soul-nurturing wood in the Wind Divine Kingdom, but it had been given by the secret sex reverse spirit channel. Most people didn't know about it, including Turner. The Wind Divine Kingdom had not used this piece of soul-nurturing wood, and it had been kept by War King Wind. Now he was wondering, how did Zen know about this secret? It was impossible for War King Wind to understand the meaning of the Great World's will. Otherwise, the Divine Kingdom continent wouldn't have been unable to reveal the identity of the little monster. Zen, who now possessed the will of the Great World, was in an omniscient state. He could receive all the information of this Great World in an instant if he wanted. There were no longer any secrets that could be kept from Zen. Turner was even more curious. How could Zen know about something that even he did not know about? He turned to War King Wind with inquiring eyes and asked, Wind, is this true? Do you really have a piece of soul-nurturing wood? War King Wind nodded as he gently swiped his space ring. As he did that, a brown branch appeared in his hand. The branch looked ordinary, as a branch from any tree. But looking closely at its texture, one could feel there was something odd about it. It was as if the branch was pulling one's soul into it. Wind, Turner looked hesitant. War King Wind knew that he wanted him to offer the soul-nurturing wood to Zen. The soul-nurturing wood had magical effects on nurturing souls. It could only be used after one's body had been destroyed. It wasn't an easy object to find, but it was not valuable for most people. War King Wind offered it with one condition, I can give you my soul-nurturing wood, but you have to answer me one question. A. Zen would do anything to get this piece of soul-nurturing wood. He would pay any price for it, no matter what War King Wind would demand in return. He never thought War King Wind would ask him for information though. Zen held many secrets, some he couldn't reveal. Some secrets would make most warriors lose their minds. If he asked a question that Zen couldn't answer honestly, it would be a great problem. Oblivious to Zen's dilemma, War King Wind asked directly, how did you know that I have a piece of soul-nurturing wood? Who told you that? A. Zen's eyelids twitched with hesitation. This was undoubtedly a hard question to answer. Just tell me honestly who told you that. I won't hold anyone accountable. After all, this isn't a big secret. I'm just curious, you know. War King Wind added with a smile. Zen stared at the soul-nurturing wood. He was in a dilemma. He couldn't tell War King Wind that he had inherited the will of this great world. Locating the soul-nurturing wood in the possession of War King Wind had been an easy task for Zen. If he wanted, he could easily figure out how War King Wind had grown to this level, what kind of cultivation technique he learned, and even what abilities he acquired. Now he could know all kinds of things if he wanted. This was how amazing his state of omnipotence was. Zen hesitated for a moment. He was inquiring about the origin of this piece of soul-nurturing wood in his mind. He wanted to find out how many people had known about this piece of soul-nurturing wood and see if he could come up with a possible excuse. The result was quite disappointing. After the soul-nurturing wood was passed down from the reverse spirit channel, Marine had personally handed it over to War King Wind. Only a few people knew about its existence, including Marine and Fiona. Zen couldn't possibly lie that Marine was the one who had told him about it. He believed that she would expose his lie immediately. But what about Fiona? Zen looked to Fiona. To his surprise, she was staring back at him. Fiona was War King Wind's daughter and Zen didn't think she would help him to cover up his lie. What's the matter? Is it such a hard question to answer? War King Wind asked with a smile. Zen gritted his teeth. He tried to think about something to offer War King Wind to trade for the soul-nurturing wood. Anything would be better than revealing his secret. To his surprise, Fiona suddenly broke the silence and said, father, it was me who told him about it. What? War King Wind couldn't believe her words and looked at her with an astonished look. You told him? When did you do that? Just a few moments ago when Zen asked his king about the soul-nurturing wood, I used my life vitality and whispered it into his mind, Fiona said with a graceful and calm smile on her face. Is that so? War King Wind asked as he stared closely at Zen. This was unexpected, but since she offered to help him he wouldn't be so stupid and deny it. He immediately nodded and said, yes, your daughter told me that you had a piece of soul-nurturing wood. Even though this excuse was far-fetched, it could work if both of them confirmed it. However, War King Wind didn't believe Fiona's words at all. He knew his daughter very well and, with just a glance, he could tell that she was lying. He was only curious about Zen's secret, and since his daughter had stepped in, he would not make things more difficult for Zen. He passed the soul-nurturing wood to his daughter. Fiona walked towards Zen and handed the soul-nurturing wood to him. Thank you, Zen said with gratitude as he took the soul-nurturing wood and his hands trembled with excitement. Now he could help save Lavender's soul. Fiona blinked and gave Zen a soft smile before she turned around and returned to her father. War King Wind had witnessed all his daughter's acts and expressions. He raised his head to look at the sky. No one knew what was going on in his mind. Chapter 813, The Light Column. After Zen obtained the soul-nurturing wood, he quickly returned to the plaza. Even though he tried his best to keep calm, he still could not suppress the excitement on his face. The numerous Soul Sea Realm masters who saw this were certain that Zen wanted to use the soul-nurturing wood to rescue someone's life, but they just had no idea who it was. As for War Emperor York and Marine, they looked highly displeased. They truly didn't expect that the little monster they had sent out would fail to kill Zen. Aside from that, they were also fuming because Zen had been granted with incredible gifts. How could they cope with such a failure? Although the Cyan Dragon confirmed that Lavender's soul could survive for a day or two, it was nothing but a probability and an estimate. That happening had the exact same chance as her soul immediately collapsing after a couple of hours. Zen hurriedly asked the Cyan Dragon, how do you use this soul-nurturing wood? But the moment he asked that, the shrill voice rang out again, and it said, the fight is over. Now we will begin the sacrificial ceremony. Open the Feather Holy Sea. The moment they heard the voice, all of the divine level talents turned their gazes towards the platform. The matches that had happened beforehand were only a way to test the strength of the warriors. What was really important was the exploration of the Feather Holy Sea. Zen was not in the mood to pay attention to the sacrificial ceremony that was going to happen. For him, there was only one thing he needed to do before anything else: placing Lavender in the soul-nurturing wood. If Lavender's soul had not fallen into a deep sleep, she could have entered the soul-nurturing wood all by herself. But because it was unconscious, the cyan dragon told Zen that he had to move her soul into the soul-nurturing wood instead. Zen looked around and found a relatively quiet corner in the wide plaza. He sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes before immersing himself in his thoughts. Inside his mind, he saw Lavender's soul still lying quietly, cracks appearing on its surface. Zen flew over and hugged her, dragging her out from his mind. Before he did, however, he turned around to look at the mysterious furnace. The light shining from the cyan dragon and the red dragon on top of it had also dimmed down by quite a bit. Zen had paid a heavy price for his battle with the little monster, but the rewards he had reaped were great. First of all, after fusing with the world's will, Zen's soul had risen to a new level. More importantly, he could connect his body to the whole world. With that, the attacks he would suffer could be offloaded to the great world. Aside from that, there was still a tremendous amount of information that Zen had to fully explore. Hiss. According to the method taught to him by the cyan dragon, Zen placed the segment of the soul-nurturing wood between his eyebrows. The moment Zen moved Lavender's soul out of his mind, her soul immediately entered the soul-nurturing wood. Within a short while, Lavender's soul completely disappeared, and the segment of the soul-nurturing wood emitted a faint red light. When Zen touched the soul-nurturing wood, it felt warm. This soul-nurturing wood is such a miracle, he thought, thanking the heavens and letting out a long sigh of relief. Although Lavender's soul was seriously injured, it would easily recover with the help of this soul-nurturing wood. As its name suggested, it had the ability to nurture the soul. Zen truly believed that after a certain period of time, Lavender's soul would make a complete recovery. But even if Lavender couldn't completely recover, Zen would still have enough time to help her find the elixir that would be able to fully heal her soul. While Lavender had not been with him for a long time, ever since she had chosen to accompany him, she had helped him survive through countless calamities. Zen would never forget the kindness she had shown him. After Zen finished dealing with Lavender's soul, the sacrificial ceremony on the platform had already begun. Swoosh! A huge circular light column suddenly appeared on the high platform. Right after it appeared, however, it suddenly shot upwards and into the air. Is this the sacrificial ceremony? I wonder what it is for, Zen mumbled to himself, saddened as he didn't know much about the Divine Kingdom continent. However, as soon as he thought of this, he rolled his eyes and tapped his head. He had forgotten that he had the ability to comprehend everything. An idea flashed through Zen's mind, and he already knew the answer. The Feather Holy Sea had originally been occupied by the dragon lineage human. Before the dragon lineage human had died, they had killed all of the creatures within their race and made a blood sacrifice. In the past, the dragon lineage human was also considered as something flourishing for a time. The sacred place of the dragon lineage human was at the late stage of 8th grade, even highly comparable to a 9th grade power. It was far stronger than the 7 great divine kingdoms. Before they got destroyed, the number of dragon lineage human members had been terrifyingly high. In fact, a blood sacrifice was a curse. After living creatures were killed through the ritual, a curse would be born. This would be the source of the malicious aura of the warriors. However, the dragon lineage human had cleverly used this curse in their favor. They employed this curse after sacrificing all of the creatures in their clan. It meant that every being that stepped into the Feather Holy Sea would be affected by the curse. And this curse was manifested through a layer of golden light on the surface of the sea. What the 4 divine kingdoms needed to do was to temporarily disperse a portion of that golden light. Only then would they be able to smoothly allow warriors to enter the Feather Holy Sea. As that light column shot up into the sky, all the powerful Soul Sea Realm Masters under the steps rose up at the same time. The 4 rulers of the divine kingdoms occupied the top position, and dozens of other Soul Sea Realm Masters below started releasing their life vitality. The shrill voice once again spoke, everyone, let's work together to dispel the curse in the Feather Holy Sea. This sharp voice would be heard from time to time, but the identity of the person behind it was still unknown. Ever since the beginning, he had never revealed anything about him, making him extremely mysterious. Under his direction, the huge light column that shot into the sky slowly tilted, and started heading towards the Feather Holy Sea. Hoo! At that moment, violent winds surged, and the skies changed color. The various divine-level talents all looked at the scene in front of them, their face determined. The moment the light column slanted and touched the feather holy sea, it fused with the golden light that was coming from the feather holy sea. Then, a miraculous scene occurred. The light within the light column seemed to be fighting the golden light on the surface of feather holy sea. The moment the light column entered the sea, the golden light was continuously eroded by the light column. The originally tranquil feather holy sea suddenly became frantic, like struggling giant monster. Enormous waves started appearing on the golden ocean and it went in all directions, layer by layer. At the same time, the golden light seemed to have melted and shrank at an incredibly fast speed. Zen's eyes narrowed. Although he already knew the process of the sacrifice from the memories that flashed before him, he was still incomparably shocked when he saw this scene with his own eyes. This method couldn't possibly have been thought of by the 4 Divine Kingdoms members. Presumably, they had also received help from the humans of the upper world. After 5 minutes, the feather holy sea slowly calmed down and the light column also began to dim. The surface of the feather holy sea was still suffused with the faint golden light. However, compared to before, the color of the golden light was much, much lighter. After the light column disappeared, a person was standing there. That person wore a steel gray robe, and both of his eyebrows were snow white. He did not seem angry, but had a solemn aura. He was a Taoist priest with white eyebrows. All right, the sacrificial ceremony is over. Everyone can get the dragon blood and enter the feather holy sea. The Taoist priest exclaimed. He was the person behind the shrill voice. As Zen looked at the Taoist priest, he seemed to notice him. After he casually glanced at Zen, he ordered the Soul Sea Realm Masters of the 4 great divine kingdoms to give out the dragon blood. I can't figure out how strong he is, Zen thought. Suddenly, his heart began to race. Even a Soul Sea Realm Master would find it difficult not to let Zen figure out his cultivation level. This time, however, Zen was completely stumped as to what the Taoist priest's cultivation level was. There was only one possibility. The Taoist priest was definitely not just at the Soul Sea Realm. Aren't only the Soul Sea Realm Masters and those below this level allowed to exist in the lower world? Zen asked the Cyan Dragon in confusion. Theoretically, even the Soul Sea Realm Masters couldn't be tolerated by the Great World. When life and death realm warriors appeared in the world, the heavenly law would punish them with the life and death crisis, something that could also be called as the small heavenly tribulation. Right after a warrior had reached the Soul Sea Realm, the nature law would bring down the large heavenly tribulation. Chapter 814, The Blood Sacrifice. Although it was very easy for a warrior to die from a heavenly tribulation, many warriors managed to overcome it and had even cultivated further, effectively making themselves stronger. If even the heavenly tribulation was unable to kill a powerful warrior, the world itself would make a way to make sure that the said warrior would be exiled from the world. Of course, this was what was called a going to the upper world. However, it was a pity that there was a problem with this world's path to the upper world. Even if the world wanted to kick a mighty warrior out of its premises, it wouldn't be able to. The Cyan Dragon replied lightly, yes. With the resources in the lower world, a warrior more powerful than Soul Sea Realm Masters would not be able to appear in the lower world. But that person's strength surpasses that of Soul Sea Realm warriors. Zen started, slightly hesitating. How is it possible that he's here? Well, Zen, the answer to that is very simple. He is not a person from this world. I am sure that he came from the upper world, the Cyan Dragon explained. I see. That explains everything, Zen said, his face lightening up, his heart even skipping a beat. Without wasting any time, he started searching the memory of the world's will for the origin of this white-browed Taoist priest. What? He suddenly exclaimed, his face contorted due to surprise and frustration. There's no information on this guy. It was only then did he discover that the existence of this powerful priest was nowhere to be found in the memory of the world's will. That's very normal, the Cyan Dragon said, his voice soothing to calm Zen down. While the world's will you got is in a state wherein you can know everything about the world, this priest came to this world through the reverse spirit channel. He is not a life form that was born in this world. Because of that, I am sure that he paid a considerable price to come to this world, he concluded, trying to make Zen understand. With that, Zen was successfully enlightened on the nature of the powerful being. However, something still wasn't sitting right with him. But I was able to find the soul-nurturing wood. Tell me, why couldn't I find any information on this priest? Well, the soul-nurturing wood is a dead item. If you don't believe me, you can check the Dark Nether Cave, Immortal Mist's celestial tomb, and the Fairy Palace in the eastern region. It's impossible to find the information on living things that don't belong to this world. As he was still unconvinced, Zen did what the Cyan Dragon said. As he researched through the memory of the world's will, he was able to find out that the things presented to him by the Cyan Dragon were very correct. He was unable to search the Dark Nether Cave, the Tower of Sin, and the Fairy Palace in his memory, but he was able to find the Celestial Tomb. Even without the Cyan Dragon's explanation, Zen could already guess the reason why he couldn't search these places. Even though Immortal Mist was also a warrior from the upper world, he was born in this world, and so Zen was able to find his existence in the memory of the world's will. However, since the Fairy Palace and the Tower of Sin were both places that originated from another world, Zen was not able to find them. Zen also tried to look for the young man who took Yan away, but he was also unable to find him either. Since there was no other way he could find anything useful on the powerful priest, he decided to leave him behind. Just as the priest had ordered, the mighty warriors of the 4 divine kingdoms began to pass dragon blood around. Zen saw several life and death realm masters continuously giving out small bottles to many divine level talents. Even after dispelling the curse surrounding the Feather Holy Sea, it was still difficult for the virtual tribulation realm warriors to enter. The power from the blood sacrifice that remained was enough to make virtual tribulation realm warriors unable to move even an inch, causing them to eventually die helplessly in the Feather Holy Sea. That was why every human warrior had to consume a drop of genuine dragon blood before entering. The genuine dragon blood was a great tonic for ordinary warriors. After consuming it, they would be able to enhance their strength as a trace of the genuine dragon's power had been contained within their own blood. However, for warriors of this level, this tiny bit of genuine dragon's power was extremely insignificant. Its main use was to help them resist the power of the blood sacrifice that was abundant in the Feather Holy Sea. The length of a genuine dragon could be thousands of miles, almost comparable to a continent. Their blood, however, wasn't a rare treasure in the upper world. Otherwise, when Zen entered the genuine dragon world, he wouldn't have been given the genuine dragon blood. It wasn't clear how the 4 divine kingdoms were able to obtain this amount of genuine dragon blood. Zen concluded that they had also used the reverse spirit channel in order to obtain it. After a few minutes, Zen had also been given a drop of the genuine dragon blood. A strange smile appeared on Zen's face as he received his small bottle. The genuine dragon blood contained in his body was surely more than all of the drops combined, not to mention that his body also contained genuine dragon blood essence. Unlike normal genuine dragon blood essence was something warriors from this world would die for. This was because genuine dragon blood could reproduce, while genuine dragon blood essence couldn't. Even in the genuine dragon world, a drop of genuine dragon blood essence was an extremely rare find. Some warriors immediately swallowed the genuine dragon blood in a single gulp as soon as they received their bottles. Although the genuine dragon blood wasn't of much use to Zen, he still drank it in order to blend in with the others. After every warrior on the square had taken in their genuine dragon blood, they began to disperse. They knew that they were about to set off. It was just like what Randy said. Warriors who were to explore the Feather Holy Sea would have to form their own teams. Within a few moments, the warriors grabbed a partner or formed a group of 3. At that moment, a voice suddenly rang out, "Hey Thad. I'd like to invite you to join my team. Let's explore the secret land together." When Zen turned around, he discovered that the one who spoke was the Crown Prince of the Wind Divine Kingdom. Now, Zen already knew that the Wind Divine Kingdom was the Lu family's territory and the Crown Prince was called Horace Lu. Being invited by a Crown Prince was considered to be a great honor to the one who was invited. But then again, with the power that Zen had displayed a while ago, who wouldn't want him to join their teams? Although the 4 divine kingdoms had explored secret lands for many years now and already had a good understanding of the 4 secret lands, there were still many unpredictable dangers lurking in where they were headed. Because of that, having a mighty warrior like Zen in one's team would increase the chances of the team surviving unscathed tenfold. As a response to his invitation, Zen smiled apologetically and said, I'm sorry, but I've already accepted Lord Randy's invitation." Lord Randy? Randy Joe?" Horace Lu asked as he frowned slightly. By that time, Randy, Camilla and the others, were already approaching Zen. When they arrived, Randy patted Zen on the shoulder and turned to Horace Lu, saying, yes. Zen has already joined my team. Sorry kid, but you're a bit too late. Dejection was written all over Horace Lu's face. Actually, before he invited Zen, he had already known in his heart that it would be impossible for Zen to agree to him. Although Zen was not a warrior from the Harlan Divine Kingdom, he was representing the Harlan Divine Kingdom in battle. Horace Liu just wanted to try his luck. You're awesome, Thad. Camilla said as she neared Zen. An excited smile was already on her luscious lips. Before Zen's battles, they had already known that his strength was not to be trifled with because they had sparred with him before. They believed that Zen had displayed at least 80% of his strength before them. But after they saw Zen fighting the warriors from the other divine kingdoms, they then realized that they were wrong. They really didn't imagine that Zen would be that strong. Not only did he crush the strongest talents of the divine kingdoms, he also injured a Soul Sea Realm Mystera War Emperor York, who was even an elite among the Soul Sea Realm Masters. If they hadn't personally witnessed this scene, they wouldn't have dared to believe it. With that, the gazes that Camilla and the others shot at Zen had completely changed. Especially Camilla, the only thing in her eyes at that very moment was a fervent worship. Being able to form a team with Zen was an extremely fortunate thing. With him in tow, they sure would likely reap a great harvest from this trip. Zen nodded his head. Alright. When should we set off? We can set off now, Randy said with a smile. According to the rules, once you win against the warriors from the other 3 divine kingdoms, the warriors from the winning divine kingdom would be the first ones to enter the Feather Holy Sea. However, that is of no importance to us, As they were talking, Bram, the crown prince of Harlan Divine Kingdom, had already led several people flying high into the sky. They followed the West Dragon River upstream, entering the Feather Holy Sea. If that's the case, then let's go, Zen said enthusiastically. The reason why he had joined the Jade Martial House and fought on behalf of Harlan Divine Kingdom was to enter the Feather Holy Sea. Finally, he would be able to step into it. Soon enough, Zen, Randy, Camilla, and the others were flying into the sky, heading straight for the Feather Holy Sea. Waves surged towards the shore of the Feather Holy Sea and the faint golden light still contained the power of blood sacrifice. The moment Zen entered the sea, he felt an omnipresent power wrap around him. Is this the power of blood sacrifice? Zen thought as his eyes flashed. Under the influence of the force of blood sacrifice, Zen's flying speed had greatly slowed. The speed of Randy and Camilla had slowed down even more than his. As they continued forward, they felt an invisible hand pulling them into the sea. Chapter 815, The Slow Arrows. The scattered warriors all continued to head towards the Feather Holy Sea. The Feather Holy Sea was like a huge mine for them. After a sacrificial ceremony, the blood sacrifice power would get pushed to a lower level, but this would only last for around 5 days. After that, the blood sacrifice power would gush out from the depths of the Feather Holy Sea and cover the sea once again. Then even the Soul Sea Realm Masters would find it difficult to take a single step forward. As the group slowed down, Zen, who was also following Randy, slowed down and started descending slowly. However, several figures were shooting at them from the shore. The person in the lead was surrounded by lightning. Randy glanced back at the figure and said, that is the Crown Prince of the York Divine Kingdom, Frederick Liu, In the previous match, Frederick Liu did not fight with anyone. The royal family wouldn't usually participate in this sort of a battle, but since Fiona had already joined the fight, many princes of the Divine Kingdoms wanted to challenge and fight Zen. However, after Zen had fought with the little monster, War Emperor York had personally fought with Zen, but he had vomited blood after being punched by Zen. Seeing this, the crown princes of the Divine Kingdoms had all given up on this idea. If Zen was able to harm a Soul Sea Realm Master, surely he must be very powerful and remarkable. However, this did not mean that they accepted defeat. After so many years, countless brilliant talents had appeared in the 4 great Divine Kingdoms. Zen's strength might have surpassed them right now, but that did not mean they could not become more powerful than Zen in the future. Moreover, the crown princes of the Divine Kingdoms were armed with semi-divine as well as divine weapons. They still looked down upon Zen. Whoosh, whoosh, Frederick Liu, the crown prince of the York Divine Kingdom had led 6 warriors and advanced rapidly. Although Zen and Randy set off first, they did not pursue speed. So after a while, Frederick Liu overtook them. Frederick Liu glanced at Zen as he passed him by. He didn't pause even for a moment and continued flying forward. Frederick's hidden talent is also extremely powerful. I have not seen him fight for 7 or 8 years. According to my estimate his strength is not inferior to Fiona's, Randy warned Zen. But Randy was confident that Zen could defeat Frederick Liu. After all, even the little monster was no match for Zen. Furthermore, he had withstood every single punch of War Emperor York. No matter how terrifying Frederick Liu's talent was, it would be difficult for him to fight Zen. Zen acknowledged this with a slight nod and continued moving ahead steadily, staying behind Randy. As they went deeper and deeper into the Feather Holy Sea, the impact of the blood sacrifice power became greater and greater. Everyone's flying altitude also became lower and lower. This was because everyone had swallowed the blood of the genuine dragon, and was able to counteract a small amount of the blood sacrifice power. Otherwise, the vast majority of warriors would have been pulled into the Feather Holy Sea. After they had traveled for a dozen miles or so, Randy, Camilla and Renzo found it difficult to maintain their altitude, only flying close to the surface of the sea, except Zen. "Oh, we can't maintain the previous speed now. Everyone, come down. If we keep moving like this, we'll be pulled down into the sea," A instructed Randy as he stopped and took out a small boat from his space ring. It seemed that the boat was made of a sheet of paper. There were lots of divine textures drawn on it. The divine texture skill of the 4 divine kingdoms was passed down from the humans of the upper world. Zen found that they were familiar, but he was unable to gauge their effects. Randy adjusted the paper boat and casually threw it into the Feather Holy Sea. The paper boat instantly expanded in the wind and quickly turned from a small piece of paper to a huge ship that was over 100 feet long. This large ship was covered in wonderful lights. It was extremely exquisite, as if it was a ship for an immortal. Seeing Zen's curious gaze, Randy laughed. This paper boat is a sacred weapon. Although it's a top-grade sacred weapon, it can only be used to carry people. It doesn't have any other function, It must have been passed down from the upper world, right? Zen asked. Yes, only the weapon refiners of the upper world are willing to spend their time creating this kind of weapon, Randy explained amicably. The resources of the lower world were scarce. So the weapon refiners usually only forged powerful, heavy-duty weapons. They would rarely spend their cultivation methods on auxiliary weapons. This was evident in Fiona's jade bracelet. Camilla was the first to climb aboard the boat after Randy finished speaking. She had mastered a bit of the time law, which made her stronger, but her strength was still a bit inferior to that of Renzo and Barry. She was about to get pulled down by the blood sacrifice power. After that, Barry and Renzo jumped onto the boat, followed by Randy and Zen. When everyone was settled in, the paper boat sailed forward steadily. The pull of the blood sacrifice power was much less on Zen than that on other warriors, perhaps it was because of the genuine dragon's blood essence. Zen was confident that he could cross the Feather Holy Sea even if he didn't stay on the paper boat. Other than Zen's group, the other teams brought out all sorts of magic weapons. Some were large ships, some were light boats, and there were even 2 houses floating above the pale golden sea. This paper boat was truly worthy of being a top-grade sacred weapon. It cut through the waves at an incomparably fast speed. It continued sailing on high speed for 6 hours. The sun gradually set and the sky darkened. A huge island appeared in front of everyone. Zen glanced at the sky and was about to speak when he realized that he might be able to search his memories for information on this island. He did not say anything and instead began searching his mind. He had heard Francis describe the 4 secret lands, and Randy had also told him about the distribution of these lands. But what he saw with his own eyes would be a bit different from what others described. The Feather Emperor's secret land, the Mysterious Dream secret land, and the Divine Emperor's secret land were all located on 3 islands. These memories helped Zen come to the conclusion that the Feather Emperor's secret land was located on the island in front of him. The closer the paper boat got to the island in front of them, the greater the pressure of the blood sacrifice power got. Although most of the blood sacrifice power had been offset through the sacrificial ceremony, the remaining power of the blood sacrifice could still cause trouble to the virtual tribulation realm warriors. After a while, the paper boat slowly approached the shore. Randy was the first to jump off the boat. Camilla, too, jumped onto the shore. However, she was unsteady on her feet and was about to fall. Just as she was about to fall, Zen arrived and reached out to support her. Thank you. Camilla smiled sweetly. Zen glanced at her indifferently and nodded slightly. It was extremely difficult for a virtual tribulation realm warrior to fly on this island. Randy's life vitality flashed gently in his hand and suddenly shot towards the paper boat. It spun for a moment, then quickly shrunk to become pocket-sized and flew back into Randy's hand. He looked at the forest on the island trying to orient himself. Then he commanded, let's go. At the same time, many warriors entered the forest. Once entering the forest, Randy became extremely cautious. As he moved, he started to count in a low voice. Sweet little Randy, what are you counting? Camilla asked with a puzzled expression. Randy concentrated on counting, 336, 337, Except for Randy, it was the first time that Zen, Renzo, Camilla, and Barry had explored the Feather Holy Sea. They were all perplexed by Randy's behavior. 390. 400. He suddenly stopped and said to Camilla, we have entered the slow arrow area. A slow arrow area. Camilla was thoroughly confused now. Randy nodded as he replied, yes. That is an extremely slow arrow. Everyone, be careful. Everyone was still baffled as to what exactly this slow arrow area was. However, the moment Randy took the lead, a series of sounds erupted. A row of numerous arrows appeared in front of them. Every single arrow was flashing with a blue light. It was possible that they were highly toxic. Toxic arrows were very common, but the weird thing about these was that their speed was very slow. They were slower than the walking speed of an ordinary person. Chapter 816. Dragon Arsenic. An arrow was usually a symbol of speed. They were projectile weapons designed to be as fast as lightning, but the arrows coming towards them were the exact opposite. These arrows seem to be bound by the time law. That's why they're so slow. Camilla observed. Renzo couldn't help but laugh when he saw the oncoming arrows. They're even slower than half of my walking speed. How could they ever hit anyone? But Randy was quick to dismiss his humor. Don't underestimate these arrows. They contain dragon arsenic. It's a type of poison that can kill even a Soul Sea Realm warrior. Many Life and Death Realm warriors have died because of these arrows. Renzo scoffed, not really believing what Randy had said. The poison on these arrows may be powerful, but you can't expect me to believe that a Life and Death Realm warrior has died because of the arrows. They're so slow that even an old man could easily dodge them. How can they ever kill a Life and Death Realm warrior? Randy shook his head at Renzo's dismissal. These arrows are all defensive measures left behind by the dragon lineage human. I'm just telling you this because it's better to be safe than sorry. You'll see soon enough why we should be on guard. The seriousness in Randy's voice clearly emphasized the danger of these arrows. Renzo was still skeptical but chose to remain cautious. It was indeed better to be safe than sorry. The five of them continued on towards the forest with Randy taking the lead. There weren't a lot of arrows at first, so they could easily ignore them while they went on their way. The arrows came from the front and everyone just needed to carefully dodge them. It wasn't hard considering that the arrows were incredibly slow. However, they soon realized the truth in Randy's words when he told them they had to be careful. It wasn't the speed they should have been concerned with, but the rapid increase in volume of the arrows the further they ventured inside the forest. In the beginning, 3 to 5 arrows flew towards them, which were easily avoidable. However, that number quickly bumped up to 20, and the arrows now came from all directions. Sometimes the arrows would line up in a row and completely seal off a path ahead, which meant everyone would have to fly over or crawl their way through the obstacle. It wasn't extremely back-breaking, but the suppression from the blood sacrifice did make it quite difficult for them to fly. It was good that they were skilled virtual tribulation realm warriors and could still keep their movements agile. However, Renzo couldn't help but grow impatient at these arrows. An oncoming arrow approached him and effectively blocked his way. Thinking nothing of it, Renzo got out his dagger and swung at the projectile. Renzo, don't, Randy shouted, but it was already too late. The dagger was a mid-grade sacred weapon, so it was no doubt sharp. However, the blade failed to even cut through the arrow. In fact, as it came slashing down, the arrow merely trembled before speeding up towards Renzo. Swoosh! It was as if a switch had been flipped as the arrow suddenly took off and headed for Renzo's chest. The sudden acceleration stunned Renzo and left him frozen in his spot. Thankfully, Zen was quick enough to push him away at such a critical moment. The arrow missed him by mere millimeters and simply grazed the front of his chest, leaving a large hole on his shirt. Hurry up and help him take off his clothes. Randy shouted with urgency. A streak of blue light appeared where the arrow had grazed Renzo's shirt. It was the deadly dragon arsenic that Randy had warned all of them about. An ordinary poison would only take effect once it had entered the victim's body, but the dragon arsenic was different. It was similar to a living creature that ate through anything in order to eliminate its victim. In this case, it was eating through Renzo's shirt. Renzo immediately panicked and made a frantic move to take off his clothes. His distress stemmed from Randy's words earlier that the poison had claimed the lives of Life and Death Realm warriors. Zen was more direct. Understanding the urgency of the situation, he used his palm strike and directly shattered Renzo's clothes. Randy heaved a sigh of relief once the clothes dissipated through the wind, taking the ominous blue light with it. Meanwhile, Renzo was in a slightly dazed state, having just survived a near-death experience. Randy quickly took out a set of clothes from his space ring and tossed them at Renzo. Put these on. If it weren't for Zen, you'd already be dead. Both Camilla and Barry also breathed a sigh of relief. It was at this moment that they really counted themselves lucky for teaming up with someone as capable as Zen. Don't be careless anymore. The deeper we go, the more arrows we'll see. They may be slow, but it will still be very difficult to dodge them. Randy warned once again. Camilla, Barry, and Renzo all subconsciously stayed close to Zen, feeling a sense of security in his presence. Zen noticed this but did not mind. His body was immune to most poisons, and the only scary thing about these arrows was the dragon arsenic on them. In terms of power, it wouldn't really cause much harm to Zen. He could protect his teammates if trouble ever arose. Another row of arrows is coming. Everyone, follow me. Randy ordered. The deeper they went, the more arrows there would be. There were so many around them now, around 100, that they were enough to make one's hair stand on end. Fortunately, there was a small gap between the arrows that they could exploit. Randy led them through the wall of arrows. All of them stood sideways and slowly eased themselves through the gap. The wall of arrows was no joke. There were numerous arrows in front, behind, and on top of them. Blue light flashed all around them, and the thought that they were surrounded by deadly projectiles containing dragon arsenic was very disconcerting. Once they passed through the wall, Randy did not let them rest. Keep moving. As soon as he gave the order, they heard a horrible wail come from somewhere not too far away. A loud scream followed. He got shot. A warrior shouted, which cast fear on everyone's face. Zen immediately turned to look in the direction of the scream. Just a few hundred feet away from them was an empty space where a warrior had collapsed after being hit by an arrow. The warrior was a divine-level talent from the Starfield Divine Kingdom. The sight wasn't anything short of horrifying. His entire body emitted a blue glow, and his skin almost immediately started to fester. The sight of his entire flesh boiling and wriggling as it fell from his bones was something that one would not forget easily. The group could only look in horror as the warrior's body hissed and fizzled until nothing was left of him. Randy had warned them that the dragon arsenic was an extremely potent poison, but none of them could have ever prepared themselves for such a scene. Even Camilla's face was noticeably paler. There was apparent fear in their eyes once they realized the gravity of their situation. Their group had witnessed firsthand just how deadly these arrows could be, but they knew they had to push on. All of them had already been aware of the possibility of death the moment they chose to explore the Feather Holy Sea. They just needed to be more careful if they wanted to survive. Let's go, Zen said, before turning to Randy. I'll walk in front this time. According to convention, Randy should be the one to lead the group, but since it was Zen, he had no problems with the arrangement. The young man had time and again proven himself to be a trustworthy partner. With Zen in front, the group avoided the wall of arrows fearlessly. However, just as they were about to leave, a few figures suddenly appeared in front of them. Frederick. Randy frowned slightly at the arrival of the team led by the Crown Prince of York Divine Kingdom. They shouldn't be here. According to his estimates, Frederick's group should have already passed through the slow arrow area since they were at the very front. Did they come back? There's no way out. Frederick declared coldly once he saw them. What do you mean? Randy had come to this island before and knew that this was definitely the right path. See for yourself. Frederick pointed to the back helplessly. Chapter 817, The Magnetic Stone. Behind Frederick, arrows covered the sky and earth, coming straight for all. A sort of blue light shone on each of the arrows under the night sky. The scene was beautiful, like thousands of stars shooting across the sky. But everyone was well aware that this beauty stemmed from the most lethal poison. How do we get past this? Renzo's voice trembled. Before this moment, they had only seen hundreds of sharp arrows lined up on one Cydia. It wasn't too difficult to get through the wall of arrows. But now, there seemed to be hundreds of thousands of arrows before them. If the previous wall of arrows was an ordinary wall, this one in front of them was like the wall of a grand city. Randy's eyes flashed in urgency as he called out, let's go around the arrows. It's no use. Frederick shook his head before pointing to a beautiful lady beside him. We've tried it. We've explored the width of this arrow wall and it seems to cover the entire slow arrow area. As they carefully discussed countermeasures, they began retreating as far as they could. As everyone moved back, more and more warriors began to gather, including the Crown Prince of the Starfield Divine Kingdom, Bram, Gregory, and the others. All of them joined in the retreat. How strange. I've never seen so many arrows anytime I passed through the slow arrow area before. Is there something bad happening this year? For now, let's focus on avoiding this wave of arrows. We can move on after this disappears. With more and more warriors gathered, the entire crowd began calling out. At this moment, Camilla suggested, let's head into the sea and disembark from the other side. Would that be a good idea? The minute she finished speaking, everyone looked at her as if she were an idiot, leaving her rather embarrassed as her face flushed red. Randy then broke the silence. I forgot to tell you all. This is the only path to the Feather Emperor's secret land. There is no other path for us to take, he explained. As a result, dozens of teams and hundreds of divine-level talents were forced to retreat completely. After everyone left the slow arrow area, the arrows began to dissipate one after another. Again, gritting his teeth, Frederick continued to lead his team forward with gusto. Warriors who entered the Feather Holy Sea were supposed to be the most powerful, heroic, young elites of the Divine Kingdoms. How could they have been defeated by such a minor setback? Once again, everyone followed Frederick and stepped into the slow arrow area. With a frown, Randy said, something doesn't feel right. There seems to be some unforeseen event occurring within the Feather Emperor's secret land. Regardless of what happened, we'll have to enter it eventually, Zen said in a matter-of-fact way. While others could retreat, Zen could not. Although he could check on Letitia's condition through his memory after he fused with the world's will, he couldn't rest easy until he obtained the life stones. Of course, Randy agreed with a laugh. The man was also someone who refused to give up easily. With that, Zen and the others stepped back into the slow arrow area. Though many were cautious, a careless soul fell desperate. As the hundreds of sharp arrows pierced through him, he couldn't avoid the dragon arsenic. His body vanished in a moment. Inwardly, everyone sighed at the thought of the warrior who died from poison. But it didn't stop them from advancing. Once they had all moved forward to a certain extent, a dense, black mass of sharp arrows appeared in front of them once again. Not again, Even Frederick felt frustrated. Many of the royalties of the Divine Kingdoms looked conflicted that they might not be able to pass through, that day. It was humiliating that they had explored the Feather Holy Sea once a year until then, but so many of them were unable to pass through the slow arrow area. It was likely that the others outside the sea wouldn't believe them if they lived to tell the story. Just as everyone was stuck in hesitation, someone exclaimed, everyone, follow behind me. I can get through the area, Hearing this voice, everyone looked over at the source. It was the Crown Prince of the Wind Divine Kingdom, Callan Huo. Behind him was Fiona, as well as the other warriors from the Wind Divine Kingdom. Although Callan Huo was the Crown Prince of the Wind Divine Kingdom, his reputation was not as well known as the other three Crown Princes. Generally, those who held this title were considered the most outstanding warriors among the younger generation. Callan's talent, however, was incomparable to Fiona's. Rumor had it that Fiona might end up as the first empress in the four Divine Kingdoms. But this didn't mean that Callan wasn't outstanding in his own manner. Fiona's brilliance was just great enough to outshine the Crown Prince of the Divine Kingdom. Callan, what can you do? With a cold laugh, Frederick asked. From the beginning, he looked down on Callan like a piece of garbage. But Callan's expression remained calm as he said, I'll just use something to block the arrows. Haha, Callan, what are you going on about? Don't you know that these sharp arrows are made from meteoric iron? What can block these arrows? The very idea made Frederick sneer. As royalties of the Divine Kingdoms, they all, more or less, had some form of secret weapon in their hands. Just as Fiona had a semi-divine weapon, some crown princes had some sort of defensive semi-divine weapons. However, there wasn't much they could do against the rain of arrows. In reality, it wasn't as though no one had ever thought of this method before. In order to easily pass through the slow arrow area, someone had brought in a piece of 10-foot-tall heptal gold, which was usually considered to be a refining treasure. The metal was also 10 feet wide. Even a virtual tribulation realm warrior would need a great deal of effort to break it through. Even the heptal gold couldn't block the arrows. The moment they shot at the metal, the time loss suddenly shifted, making the speed increase by 1,000 times. In an instant, countless holes were pierced through the gold, and the warrior had died from the dragon arsenic. When no one believed him, Callan's face turned stubborn. He knew that people looked down on him, and that was what he hated most. This pushed him to exclaim, I can do it. At this moment, Fiona spoke up for him as well. Trust in my brother. He has something that can block the arrows. Unlike the royalties of the other divine kingdoms, the ones of the Wind Divine Kingdom didn't have many overt struggles or battles. In turn, Fiona and Callan had a relatively good relationship with each other as siblings. Then take it out and let us have a look. A prince said. Although he said it gently, his tone was rather taunting. It was clear that they didn't buy Callan's words. At this moment, Callan lightly tapped on a ring hanging from his chest. Following a flash of light, a huge boulder suddenly appeared before him. A dark green luster covered the surface of the stone, but it was mixed. Warriors could only sense the power of the earth law power in ordinary stones, but certain special stones contained other law power, such as thunder energy stone, containing the thunder law power. Several different kinds of law power could be felt from the stone Callan just summoned. To be exact, there were 5 kinds of law power in the stonia: the power of metal law, wood law, water law, fire law, and earth law. This kind of stone was not new to Zen. Before the martial arts contest even began, when Zen had taken the pre-qualifying test, the World Commercial Alliance had used the exact same kind of stonia, the magnetic stone. It was said that this stone had been excavated from the magnetic sacred mountain at the bottom of the chaotic ocean of stars. Although there was only a small piece of it in the World Commercial Alliance, Callan had taken out such a large piece of it. Seeing the magnetic stone, everyone was rendered speechless. Its origin was recognized by Allah. The problem was that the magnetic stone itself was extremely difficult to extract. Even a Soul Sea Realm master would have to expend a great deal of energy to extract one from the magnetic sacred mountain. In the end, it was useless. Although it had gathered within it the power of the 5 elements, this power was extremely complex. Warriors couldn't comprehend any law power from the stone. The stone itself couldn't be used to refine pills or weapons. Chapter 818, Pushing the Magnetic Stone. At this moment, everyone was convinced that Callan did have something to help them pass through the area. The magnetic stone was virtually useless, save for its incredible toughness. Even a mighty Soul Sea Realm warrior wouldn't be able to break it. The princes were all taken aback by this discovery. Why in the world would Callan carry such a useless and heavy object with him? Callan sneered at their speechless faces. Do you believe me now? His sister also had a smile on her kind face. Follow us if you want to pass through the slow arrow area, Fiona said. Frederick smiled helplessly. Fine, you win. You already amazed me by carrying such a heavy thing with you, Callan nodded happily at his words. Using his life vitality, Callan took a deep breath and lifted the magnetic stone. It was as tall as 2 people combined, and it was so heavy that even Callan's sturdy body felt strained carrying it. Fiona noticed how red her brother's face had gone, so she reached out with a hand and let out a turbulent force from her jade bracelet. The little help was all Callan needed to ease the strain and continue on with carrying the magnetic stone. With the siblings' combined efforts, they were able to carry the magnetic stone and lead the way. The other warriors closely followed behind with Fiona and Callan at the helm. This could be their only chance to enter the Feather Emperor's secret land, and they were not going to let this opportunity pass. Randy nudged Zen's side with a smile. Come on. Let's also follow. Zen rolled his eyes but humored the Lord with a nod. A long line formed behind the magnetic stone, which acted as a shield against the densely packed wall of arrows that were now on their way to them. The magnetic stone was impenetrable and impossibly hard, but there were still a few whose stomachs lurched at the sight of the approaching arrow wall. If the magnetic stone wasn't able to block the arrows, then they would be in trouble. Clank. They couldn't really see what was happening beyond their magnetic stone shield, but they could hear the clear clinking sound of the first arrow bouncing off it. More and more sounds rang out. Clank, 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 It went on for a while until Callan's and Fiona's faces turned scarlet from all the effort of carrying the stone. It was apparent that they wouldn't be able to hold out for much longer. These arrows are powerful. Help, Callan shouted. The arrows were not flying at their original speed. They were slowed down, but only because of the time law. However, the arrows were still at full strength upon hitting the magnetic stone. Even Fiona was finding it difficult to withstand the onslaught, despite she had utilized the power of the semi-divine weapon, a jade bracelet on her wrist. Hearing Callan's cry for help, Zen immediately zoomed past the other warriors and held the magnetic stone with his hands. His arrival immediately brought relief upon the siblings. It seemed Zen was actually able to withstand 90% of the blow as he pushed the stone forward. Thank you, Fiona told Zen with a smile. Actually, we should thank the 2 of you, Zen said. If not for this magnetic stone, nobody would have even been able to walk through. Of course, there was a bit of exaggeration in Zen's words. Although it would be difficult to pass through the slow arrow area, those who had cultivated the space law wouldn't have any problems. Zen, for example, could simply avoid the arrows by traveling through space. However, not many warriors had comprehended space law, and those who did would find it difficult to abandon their companions. The exploration of the Feather Holy Sea was a team effort after all. Therefore, the magnetic stone proved itself to be incredibly helpful in their passage through the area. With Zen joining Fiona and Callan at the helm, the warriors all resumed their passage. Just as everyone had thought the worst was over, a voice suddenly shouted, "Ah! There are arrows coming from the left. The left, eh?" Everyone's eyes whipped towards their left and, true enough, a barrage of arrows were on their way to rain down upon them. There are a lot from the right as well. Another warrior screamed. The situation was now grim and everyone felt panic surge through their veins. Dang, Randy cursed. Why is it so difficult to enter the Feather Emperor's secret land? The arrows now flanked them left, right, and center. There was nowhere to run from an attack of this magnitude. Even Zen wouldn't be able to pass through this obstacle unscathed. The only one that could probably get through this unharmed would probably be Logan, who had mastered the 3rd level of space law. He could use his ability to travel through the void and avoid the arrows, but that would mean leaving behind his teammates. Zen frowned at their predicament. Follow me. He shouted, crossing his palms and slamming them heavily onto the magnetic stone. Bam! With a dull thud, the magnetic stone shot forward. The force allowed Zen to push the magnetic stone 50 to 60 feet forward. Zen used the full extent of his dragon scales when he unleashed that strike on the magnetic stone. There were just too many arrows and he could only push the magnetic stone that far. Thinking quickly, the rest of the divine level talents immediately mobilized in order to pass through the slow arrow area before the arrows closed in on them. They were actually racing against the arrows. A whoosh, whoosh, the magnetic stone that had been pushed by Zen opened up a path that the divine level talents could utilize for their passage. Not wasting any time, Zen quickly rushed towards the magnetic stone and slapped his palms on it once again. The momentum boosted the distance that the magnetic stone covered, launching it around 60 to 70 feet forward. We can make it. If we're fast enough we can pass through. Quickly, hurry up and follow me. Don't push me. Everyone followed closely behind the magnetic stone since it was the only safe space against the flying arrows. Let me help you, Thad. A prince from a divine kingdom said. He rushed forward and, like what Zen did, smashed his palms against the magnetic stone. The prince was from the Starfield divine kingdom who possessed innate supernatural strength. He was a divine level talent and was probably the strongest out of everyone in the younger generation. It was only right that he presented his skills in such dire times of need. Bang! However, despite all his supposed credentials, the magnetic stone moved only less than a foot away from Hema. The sight rendered everybody speechless. Just now, Zen had managed to push the magnetic stone for several dozen feet, but the supposed strongest prince could only make it move a few inches away from him. Was Zen a monster? How could this be? The prince was someone who could easily overpower all of them in hand-to-hand combat. His strength was truly nothing to be taken lightly. But that scene with the magnetic stone just now, wasn't it a bit too ridiculous? There were also a few who wanted to help Zen push the magnetic stone. They knew they wouldn't be as strong as Zen, but they figured they could at least push it around 30 to 40 feet forward. However, everyone had a change of heart once they saw the Starfield Divine Kingdom Prince's lackluster attempt. There was nothing they could do but merely follow behind those warriors who were stronger than them. This guy's strength is amazing. No wonder he could injure a Soul Sea Realm warrior, they all thought. At the moment, however, Zen could care less about what they thought. There was a crisis to be addressed and he continuously pushed the stone forward, keeping their party safe from the arrows. Coming! They are coming! Someone screamed out. The arrows were quickly closing in on them and they had to move fast. Hurry up! There are so many people. We can't move forward. Despite Zen's display of monstrous strength, he was only one man and his efforts were still not enough. The warriors could not allow themselves to die there. Many of them constantly dodged the arrows through various leaps, rolls, and somersaults. In such a critical moment, no one had time to care about their manners. Everyone moved wildly in their desperation to survive. However, the arrows were relentless and there were still those who got hit. The miserable screams began to ring throughout the vicinity as the arrows embedded themselves into the warriors' bodies, rotting their flesh rapidly. We're almost there. Hold on. Fiona's face was flushed red and she was sweating. It was so much for her first time joining the Feather Holy Sea exploration. At first, she had been so happy when her father finally let her join. His overprotective nature had always gotten in the way of her pursuit of adventure. But now, after seeing the scene in front of her, she understood why her father had been so adamant with keeping her out of the exploration. The Feather Holy Sea was indeed filled with dangers. Just as she had shouted these words, 4 arrows came flying towards her from both sides. There was almost no room to dodge. Chapter 819, Saving Fiona. The arrows were fast, sharp and extremely dangerous considering that both stick and head contained the deadly dragon arsenic. One hit was all it would take to kill an ordinary martial artist. It was lucky that this group of warriors consisted of divine-level talents who knew how to dodge and possessed varied, unique skills to keep themselves alive. Despite having been surrounded by arrows on all sides, only a few perished under the attack. However, Fiona had not been so lucky given that she had been forced into a corner with nowhere left to run. Fiona was the princess of the Wind Divine Kingdom and her status was even higher than that of any ordinary crown prince. Any warrior would normally be happy to come to her aid since rescuing someone like her meant gaining favor from the Wind Divine Kingdom. However, the situation at that moment was dire. No one dared to risk their lives against the onslaught of the dragon arsenic arrows. Aside from containing deadly poison, these arrows were not ordinary projectile weapons. Instead of stopping or slowing down once they hit something, the arrows would greatly increase their speed to kill their targets faster. Fiona! Callan shouted in desperation once he realized Fiona's position. The two of them enjoyed a relatively safe spot at the front of the line earlier but now, Fiona had found herself in an extremely dangerous situation with arrows cornering her in all directions. Fiona herself felt hopeless. Her eyes darted around, trying to find a way to get through this predicament. Thinking fast, her jade bracelet vibrated violently and a mysterious wave of law power emanated from her. Maybe she could use the time law to stop the arrows. But it didn't. These arrows had already been infused with time law that was even stronger than Fiona's. Even after using her powers, the arrows still continued their approach without changing a beat in their speed. When two warriors used time law at the same time, the stronger law would completely overpower the weaker one, which was what happened with Fiona. Instead of stopping the arrows, the effect of her time law was redirected to the warriors around her instead, slowing down their speed. Realizing what had happened, Fiona quickly withdrew the time law in panic. She nearly killed the warriors near her when she unintentionally slowed down their movements, so it was understandable that some of them had let out a few curses directed at her. Fiona was now left with no more options. Time law did not work, so she did not dare use any other martial skills on the arrows. She could only look on in despair as her doom slowly approached in the form of dragon arsenic arrows. Am I not strong enough? Father was right. I am still not qualified to travel alone given my current strength. I just didn't think I'd die the first time I explored the secret land, she thought to herself sadly. Fiona was someone who had never experienced the cruelty of the real world. She had been sheltered and thus grew up with the naive understanding that everything was bright and beautiful. Now, however, she finally realized just how dark and unforgiving life could be for the uninitiated. Before she left, her father had offered her a vest. This vest was a divine weapon that had the capability of blocking these sharp arrows that were now on their way to her. However, she rejected his offer thinking that he doted on her too much, which inhibited her growth. She now regretted not taking that vest with her. The arrows glowed with a faint, blue light that made her think of the gleam of death's scythe. As the arrows inched towards her, Fiona couldn't help but regret her childishness. She should have listened to her father, but now, it was too late. At that moment, Zen had given up on pushing the magnetic stone. Without missing a beat, he crossed over space and rushed towards Fiona. What is he doing back here? Does he want to save me? She wondered to herself. 4 arrows from both left and right trapped her in a corner with no way of breaking out. What was Zen planning to do in turning back for her? There was no way he could save her unless he was willing to perish by blocking the arrows himself with his body. Thad, what are you doing? Just go back and push the stone. Are you trying to kill all of us? You idiot, we're so close. What are you doing? If you don't push the magnetic stone, all of us are going to die. For the other warriors, Zen was the only silver lining that remained in this situation. Following behind Zen as he pushed the magnetic stone with all his strength meant passing through the area and living for another day. They were only several hundred feet away from safety, but Zen suddenly stopped pushing and actually left the magnetic stone behind. Was he going to see everyone die? Although the other warriors were driven into panic and despair upon his departure, Randy, Camilla, and Renzo remained silent. They were also anxious and had no idea why Zen turned back, but they knew they could trust him. Zen rolled his eyes. These people were truly demanding. In truth, Zen did not care about the lives of others, but Fiona had left a good impression on him. She was kind and was even willing to lend her the semi-divine bracelet she had during his battle with War Emperor York. He felt grateful to her in some way and he couldn't just leave her behind to die. It was clear to Zen that Fiona had done it out of kindness and nothing more. She was a nice girl and he had to save her. By the time he arrived at her side, the 4 arrows were already only a few inches away from her. "Hey, what are you doing?" she screeched when she saw Zen reach out his hands towards the arrows. These arrows contained dragon arsenic and had instantly killed so many divine-level talents just a few moments ago. What was he thinking just grabbing them like that in midair? Everyone also thought of the same thing upon seeing Zen's actions. They knew he wanted to save Fiona, but they didn't think he'd do it by grabbing the poisoned arrows with his bare hands. Was he courting death? Zen grabbed the tips of the 2 sharp arrows on the right as if they were mere apples from a bright, sunny orchard and not extremely poisonous projectile weapons designed to kill instantly. However, there was a reason for his actions. Due to the influence of the time law, any casual contact on the arrows would cause them to increase their speed, which effectively raised the possibility of piercing through Fiona's body. The moment he held the tips, a tremendous force immediately burst forth from the arrows. The force was enough to push him forward, but, by holding onto the tips, Zen was able to take advantage of the momentum. Instead of being hit by the arrows, Fiona's body came into contact with the back of Zen's hand, which was enough to push her out of danger's way. At the same time, the 2 sharp arrows pierced through Zen's hands but immediately flew away and vanished without a trace. Zen's hands were comparable to a sacred weapon, but the arrows were so strong that they were able to pierce through them. One could imagine how formidable the power contained within these arrows in the slow arrow area. Fiona could only stare at Zen in a daze. Yes, she was now safe, but her savior was now doomed. Blood flowed heavily from Zen's hands while the blue dragon arsenic spread rapidly through his bloodstream. In a matter of seconds, the poison had made its way from his wrists to the other parts of his body. Stop daydreaming. That guy's now dead for sure. We have to push the stone ourselves. Thad can't help us now. Let's all push the stone quickly. Everyone, be careful. Don't touch him or you'll be poisoned too. The other warriors knew they couldn't rely on Zen's monstrous strength now, not when he was doomed to die by the poison. They now had to push the magnetic stone themselves, otherwise, they would all die. 5 to 6 figures rushed forward and began to violently bombard the magnetic stone with their combined strength. The combined efforts of these several divine-level talents had some effect, but their strength could only move the magnetic stone a foot at most, significantly less than the distance Zen had managed by pushing it on his own. While the others were busy trying to push the stone, Callan, Fiona, Randy, and Camilla remained with their gazes fixed at Zen. The poison has spread throughout his body, Buddha. Why is his body not corroding? Both Fiona and Callan asked the same question inside their heads at the same time. Chapter 820. Getting rid of the poison. Randy and Camilla were also quite shocked. Although they had every confidence in Zen and knew that he would be able to deal with everything fittingly, they still couldn't figure out how he was able to resist the dragon arsenic. Perhaps the Soul Sea Realm Masters could block the arrows which flew at such a slow speed, but at the same time, they were also unwilling to be tainted with the dragon arsenic. Other than being a secret poison produced by the dragon lineage human, it was also lethally potent. Until now, there were no antidotes or formulas found in the 4 great divine kingdoms. How did he make it? But at this moment, a sudden scream reverberated in the air. From the sound of it, it was not far from where they were. Soon surprise engulfed them as they realized that there were more and more arrows coming from both sides, so it was getting harder and harder to dodge. Taking in the chaotic sight, Zen didn't have time to explain anything to them, so he decided to urge everyone to rush out of the slow arrow area first. Get out of the way. He roared. His body was tainted with the dragon arsenic, and yet he was still sprinting forward, which startled everyone. Visibly, the poison continuously spread over his body. By then, he looked like a blue-colored sculpture. Who would dare touch him? The people in front of him all moved aside immediately, making way for him to rush through as they heard him roar some commands. Look at the dragon arsenic spreading in his body. Could it be that the poison affected him already? Dang it. It's as though he's gone insane. This guy is really crazy. At the very least, he is willing to go all out like this, push the rock and sacrifice his life for everyone else, Those divine-level talents speculated among themselves as they keenly observed Zen. The dragon arsenic was lethal, so why was he still alive and kicking? Nothing gave them an inkling as they guessed that perhaps he might have a secret skill to extend his life for a short time. Once his breath dissipated, he had to die. Bang, 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 Oblivious to Zen, several warriors who were working together with him in pushing the magnetic stone were wary of him. They cautiously dodged him as he continued hitting the magnetic stone. At Zen's full strength, the magnetic stone inched forward until it finally gave way with a loud thud. A row of black walls which adorned the edge of the slow arrow area appeared for everyone to see. Within these walls, there were round holes arranged according to the rules. And from these holes, arrows kept shooting out non-stop. Soon they realized that there were already 3 walls in the slow arrow area seeming to cage them in as arrows continued to assault towards them from the front, left and right sides. Only the direction where all they moved in did not have such a wall. Bang! Bang! Boom! At this point, Zen quickly kicked the magnetic stone with such an impact that it was sent flying up to the sky. Then it spiraled down crashing into the wall, superbly blocking some round holes. Go up! Zen shouted as he leapt up, then stepping on top of the magnetic stone and jumping onto the top of the wall. The warriors did not hesitate to do the same thing as he did. They stepped on the magnetic stone and eagerly stood on the wall as well. However, they still maintained a certain distance from Zen. After all, the blue dragon arsenic on his body was too frightening. A while after, all warriors successfully escaped the slow arrow area unscathed. Callan walked up to Zen without prejudice and simply said, Thank you for saving my sister. Zen smiled faintly and replied, You're welcome, On the other hand, Fiona blinked her eyes as she stared at the dragon arsenic, which was on Zen's body. She asked, Thad, are you okay? She felt extremely grateful towards Zen for risking his life to save her. However, she absolutely could not accept the fact that he might die because of her. Still, with a faint smile, he replied immediately, The dragon arsenic is indeed very strange. It can actually spread ceaselessly. But this poison might not be able to kill me. By this time, Randy, Camilla, and the others also had walked over. They too were worried, but relief washed over them when they heard Zen's words. They felt more at ease, realizing that after so long, he still looked like he was fine. Zen looked down at his blue hands and frowned slightly. He uttered, however, I have to expel the dragon arsenic, before keeping on going ahead along with you. It's alright, Thad. We'll wait for you, Randy spoke, smiling faintly. Before Callan got a chance to speak, Fiona also expressed, then we'll wait for you too. Let's go. Frederick glanced at Zen askew, but there was not the slightest trace of gratitude in his eyes. Except for Callan's and Randy's teams, the rest of the warriors who had just passed through the slow arrow area didn't stop. Even though it was Zen who painstakingly saved all of them, they all believed that he should do it. After all, if he didn't do that, he would also die in the end. Sitting on this wall, they could still see countless arrows crisscrossing each other as they flew slowly. These flying arrows all occupied their own orbits, but they didn't collide with each other. It had to be said that the dragon lineage human had put a lot of energy and time into arranging such a slow arrow area. Zen was musing over about how strange the dragon arsenic was. It only spread along the surface of his body and did not even enter the deepest recesses of his body. Seeing a perfect spot, he carefully sat down. All he had to do was to remove the poison flowing around the surface of his skin. With great caution, he slowly extracted his life vitality from his belly, and he let it move along his arms. Then he expertly controlled his life vitality in an attempt to fuse it with the poison. The dragon arsenic started emitting smoke the moment his life vitality and poison fused. Even the smoke was blue in color. Be careful, get away from me, Zen reminded others, being surprised and shocked. Fiona, Callan, Randy, and the rest watched Zen getting rid of the poison with much caution. Seeing the blue smoke, they all knew that it was toxic and fatal. They all abruptly took their leave and kept a distance of 50 or 60 feet away from him. As for Renzo, he moved along the wall and stayed exaggeratedly over 100 feet away. Seeing what Renzo did, Camilla burst out laughing and teasingly remarked, there's no need for you to run so far. Renzo's face turned red, and he chuckled for a short while before he walked back. Indeed, the dragon arsenic was powerful. It could even corrode the life vitality. The blue poisonous smoke was inevitably emitted by this poison after corroding the life vitality. However, when the dragon arsenic gnawed away the life vitality, a portion of it was triumphantly neutralized by Zen. Seeing this, he kept on drawing out his life vitality, causing blue smoke to rise from his surface incessantly. Over 30 seconds later, when about a third of the life vitality in Zen's body had been used up, the dragon arsenic on his body had finally disappeared. And now, his skin color had returned to normal. But before he could drag his body up, someone handed him a peach-like stone. Looking at it intently, Zen was a little stunned, and soon he quickly realized that it was a supreme life vitality crystal. The sculpting technique applied to it was also extremely remarkable. The life vitality crystal looked like a vivid peach-like stone even though its color was different from that of the peach. Then he heard Fiona whisper, "You've consumed a great deal of your life vitality. You must replenish it." Taking a supreme life vitality crystal was a common thing. It was not something out of the ordinary. With Zen's current worth, a supreme life vitality crystal was nothing special for him, let alone these princes and princesses of the divine kingdoms. But he was just surprised that the shape of this supreme life vitality crystal was extremely exquisite after being sculpted. After watching closely Zen's strange expression as he received the peach-like life vitality crystal, Fiona smiled and continued, "It was carved by me when I had nothing to do. Not bad, right? Crack. Zen gently crushed the life vitality crystal and began to absorb the pure life vitality within it. He then nodded and agreed, "Not bad. Not bad indeed, The warriors of the Divine Kingdom continent normally led easier and more comfortable lives compared to those in the central region. However, the warriors of the central region all lived more leisurely than those who dwelled in the Sea God continent. Consequently, warriors from both the Sea God continent and the central region did not get to spend time on their hobbies. They only focused on their cultivation all the time. Alright, let's continue to move forward, Randy uttered at this moment. Now that Callan, Fiona, and their team members stayed behind, Randy was well aware that they intended to form a new team. They all considered and took Zen as their leader. Fiona might look naive, but her strength might be more powerful than his. Thus in his eyes, it was also a good thing to form a new team. After we pass by the Slow Arrow area, we will now be heading to the Spirit Beast area. However, because of the blood sacrifice, all the spirit beasts there have been killed, Randy spoke. The blood sacrifice of the dragon lineage human pertained to the sacrifice of the life of the entire clan. In theory, there were no living beings left in the 4 great secret lands. Doesn't that mean there's no more danger? A divine level talent, who followed Callan, curiously probed. Randy just let out a small smile and replied, what do you think?